Kerrville City Council is now in session, and Councilmember Eichner is going to lead us in the invocation, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. And it should be noted that this time last week, she and her husband and son and grandsons were at the White House as a part of the lighting of the Christmas tree. So, anyway.
It was fun.
It was fun. Let's stand and she'll lead us in prayer.
Please join me in prayer. Lord, in this season of Christmas, we find in our hearts and minds hope and expectations. Expectations of good food, of fun times with families and friends. Expectations of hope, of a new and deeper understanding of the meaning of Christmas. Expectations and hopes of what we want to accomplish in the new year. And for everyone in this room, for all who love and care about Kerrville, we each have expectations and hopes for our city. And so, Lord, as we gather here, we just ask for your help and guidance tonight and in the new year as we work individually and together to bring these hopes and expectations into reality to make our individual lives and our city the best they can be. And it's in your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Would you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. We are going to have announcements of community interest followed by the Citizens Forum. The Citizens Forum may not be on your agenda, but that's a mistake. We will have the Citizens Forum, and I'll comment about that in just a minute.
Thank you, Mayor. We only have two announcements tonight, and one of them, sorry I didn't get a slide for, but we, if you're interested in making a gingerbread house, the library is hosting the 5th annual gingerbread house decorating event this Saturday. And I just talked to Laura Bechtel, who runs the library, and the first session has already filled up. But if you really want to get in there, I think there's some spots open in the second session, which begins at 2:30. And so you can register for that online if you'd like. I think that's a really fun event. And the second announcement is just want to remind everybody that this will be our only city council meeting this month because 2 weeks from today is Christmas. So we won't be meeting, and 2 weeks from today is Christmas. So if you haven't done your shopping, you better get to it. But we just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I had requested that tonight at council we do gingerbread house decorating, but I was turned down. So there are limits to the power of the mayor. Okay, any other announcements for us tonight?
I have one. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just want to just pass this down. I met a gentleman at the Aquatic Center Town Hall meeting recently who wrote me back later of some possible sites we could go look at that are samples of some of the options we're considering. So independently or as a group or however we want to do it, it's just a thought. These are sites that are in San Antonio that they kind of are similar to some of the options we're considering, and it's sometimes better to see something, a visual than trying to put all that together on paper. So I'm just sharing it with everyone.
All right.
And so I got a couple announcements. So 2 weeks from now is Christmas, but 1 week from now, so you only got 1 week left to shop for my wife's birthday. So that's the first one. And the other one is one that I messed up and forgot to do last meeting. So the holiday parade, we announced all the winners of floats and everything. So if anybody saw me, I was dragging around I guess he'd be a grandson, in a wagon, and we were passing out candy, and I had promised this little girl, Colgan Graham, to announce her name because she was the last person that we gave candy to because we were out after that. So I've done that now. Thank you.
Good. Okay. We're going to move to the Citizens Forum, and remember that this allows citizens to speak on any item not already listed on the agenda as a separate item, and you'll have 4 minutes. We come along to agenda items. The limit of speakers per item is 10. The limit of time is 4 minutes. And particularly because we've got a long meeting tonight, but in general this is true, you need to be recognized to speak, and you need to have filled out the speaker's form. So we've had in recent meetings, we've had folks just kind of start from wherever they're sitting with comments, and that doesn't work. Not everybody can hear you. You need to come to the podium. And so now, do we have any persons who want to speak at the Visitors
Charlie
Citizens Forum?
McElvain.
What?
Charlie McElvain.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Blackburn, City Council members. I am Charlie McElvain, President and CEO of the Kerrville Convention Visitors Bureau. I'm here this evening to invite each of you to participate in the 15th Annual Cowboy Breakfast Kickoff, which kicks off the 75th Annual Hill Country District Junior Livestock Show. This event recognizes Hill Country students that you rarely hear about. Their names don't appear in the police blotter or on the front page of the newspaper. These are students that, in addition to working hard at school, come home after school and have chores and responsibilities required to raise a winning steer, pig, sheep, goat, or some other farm animal. The annual Cowboy Kickoff Breakfast is scheduled for 6 a.m. on Friday, January 11th, 1 month from today, at the Hill Country Youth Event Center. And in recognition of the 75th year of the stock show, we have several new activities, including a pancake breakfast, and as usual, we'll have a little friendly competition between the City Council and the Kerr County elected officials. We plan to retire the cow chip contest this year, so you can take a breath, but we'll have something new. So please stay tuned. We hope to see each of you on January 11th at the stock show breakfast.
Cow chips. Now
You've been practicing?
in my
Well,
mind.
we got something else that you'll have to practice on. But thank you.
What can we do about bringing Mr. Ferguson back out of retirement? Because he won it last year, right?
He did, but
Yes.
of course
He's
with
been
the
giving
new
me
event,
tips.
He may not be real up on this new activity.
But you say we're doing it one more year, right?
No,
this
we
is-
retired it. So
Oh, it's retired, done, over.
it's over. So we have a brand new event this year.
All right.
Come out the 11th and participate. Thank you.
Drop me a tip
Okay.
on that.
Consent agenda, Ms.
That's-
Brown?
William Rector. I have another.
Oh, you got another, okay, yeah.
Honorable Mayor, council persons, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I'm William Rector, 705 Water Street, and the council has been very kind and encouraging to downtown businesses, and I'm here representing the HDBA, the Historic Downtown Business Alliance, and our organization is here to promote the renting of downtown businesses, or buildings, to promote the shopping downtown, the prosperity of downtown businesses, and we have become very active downtown, and we appreciate your help. One of the things I wanted to bring before you tonight was our new downtown shopping brochure. It's been about 4 years since we've had a shopping brochure downtown, and I'd like for you to take a chance and an opportunity to look at it, see the businesses that are listed, not only shopping, but also dining and drinking and places to have fun downtown. And I want to tell you that this brochure was designed and was printed downtown, and our Convention and Visitors Bureau helped us with the printing of it this year. We're very proud of it. We hope you take a chance to look at it. The other thing I'd like to tell you that we're doing as HDBA is we've got an old-fashioned, old-world Christmas festival coming up this Thursday night. It's going to be two great events. One is going to be Ladies' Night Out that I'm sure all of you are familiar with. But in addition to Ladies' Night Out, we're going to have a holiday stroll that's going to be centered on Peterson Plaza. We're going to have professional carolers there. We're going to have Conchita's food truck and popcorn, wine and wassail at Cartwheel's Patio, and pastries and hot chocolate at the Shriner Mansion courtyard. So we'd like to invite everybody to come out Thursday to enjoy a night in downtown Kerrville, and we're excited about downtown, and we appreciate you being excited about downtown. And one of the things that I'd like to remind people is that a healthy downtown is a healthy community. Thank you for your support.
All right, thank you, Dr. Rector. Okay, do we have any other speakers? Okay, all right. Consent agenda, Ms. Brown?
consent agenda, these items are considered routine and can be approved in one motion unless a council member asks for a separate consideration of an item. It is recommended that the city council approve the following items, which will grant the mayor or city manager the authority to take all actions necessary for each approval. And there's 2A, 2B, and 2C.
All right.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor of that, if you'd let me know by the raised hand. Okay. That's the end of the consent agenda, and we move to,
Mayor,
Yeah.
I'd like to ask that we move 3 items forward ahead of 3D, so, because they inform later decisions, but I'm asking to move 3H, 3K, and 3I in that order, just ahead of 3D.
okay,
And Mr. Mayor, I would object to that, and the reason I would object is that we may have some people that want to come in or that are planning to come in for those items because they are later on the agenda, and if we move them forward, it prevents those individuals from being able to participate.
okay. With an objection, we need to vote on that in terms of moving those items up. All in favor of moving the items?
Wait, Mayor. That would be Mr. Baruti's prerogative, whether he wants to push, I asked there would be a vote and he'd do a motion. So we need a motion and a second if you all want to do that.
Yeah, so I guess I'm making an official motion to move those 3 items forward for the simple reason they inform later decisions. So
Okay.
that's a motion.
I'll second.
All right, you got a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by the raised hand. And any opposed by a like sign, and the motion fails. Okay. Ms. Brown, that first item, 3A.
First amendment to project funding agreement between the City of Kerrville, Texas, Improvement Corporation, and the City of Kerrville, Texas, for the design and improvement to the city's HEB tennis center.
All right.
Go ahead and read the second item in too. 'Cause
Yeah, that's right.
That's right, I'm sorry. 3B is authorized execution of a construction contract for the HEB Tennis Center renovation with J.K. Bernhard Construction Company, LLC, in the amount of $1,453,939.
And we will vote on those separately,
Yeah.
but we are discussing them together. Okay, Mr. Hoppy?
Yes, sir. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. So essentially, the project summary that we have for you today, the EIC originally had budgeted $1.5 million overall for the reconstruction, rehabilitation of the HEB tennis facility. In the 2013 timeframe, certainly we've seen cost escalations in construction on a number of fronts. And we did here as well. So our original estimates, in addition to design engineering, were just slightly off. We did receive good bids here over this last month, but we were just a hair under. So we went back to the EIC at the end of November, and with an amendment to the original project funding agreement, which was signed with the city in the January 2017 timeframe. They were amenable to adding an additional $250,000 to that, so that we could go ahead and launch off on this first phase of the construction. And so we bring that item before you tonight. Essentially, we provided for $161,000 and some change for the feasibility, the public input process, and the design engineering. We went ahead and launched off on a subsection of the construction, overall construction, that was the resurfacing of several of the courts from a time frame standpoint, so that way we can maximize the use of the courts while construction was ensuing. These were slightly offset from the main body of the construction, so that way some of the facility will be able to utilize during the spring and summer play and won't be fully disturbed by the construction. So we went ahead and did a subcontract on that, and then we did receive bids, 4 good proposals here recently. The apparent low bid on that was $1,453,000 and $939,000. There's a little typo here with J.K. Bernhard Construction. So overall, with contingency, again, EIC was amenable to amending that project funding agreement to the 1.75. This just gives a rendering. This is for the overall master plan process that the community wanted us to, and you all wanted us to move forward with. Again, this is not the piece that we're doing necessarily, there's components of it. This is an overall, we think this will be about 4.1 million. This is phase one, which again is right at a little over $1.5 million. If you haven't answered any questions you may have, again, there are two parts. Item 3A is the amendment with EIC. Item 3B is the award of the total construction contract, which is the base bid and the alternate, for the total of $1.453 million. Be happy to answer your questions you may have.
All right. Do we have any questions for Mr. Hoppy or others? Mr. Cooper?
I have a question.
Okay.
Actually, it's a point of information, and it's just a clarification. I know that EA, my name is Gary Cooper, 124 Aaron Drive. I'm on the EIC with Councilman Siegerman, and the EIC agreed to up to $250,000. We didn't grant another $250,000. We went up to. So if they only spend 100 of it, that's all we're going to give them.
Okay, okay.
And it does say in our agreement that should the funds exceed that, it'll go back to EIC, so.
All right. Okay, do we have any other questions?
Well, I guess I do. Oh, I'm sorry. They're from the audience. Is that where?
Yeah, no, council, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so I wasn't expecting that, but to his point, I mean, he's basically saying that EIC would grant the money up to. So are we waiting to get invoiced and paying them, or are we actually giving them a lump sum and getting reimbursed?
Yeah, so the way it works with EIC, most of our agreements are exactly as Mr. Cooper explained. They are, essentially, we move the funding over into a project fund. If the entirety of those funds aren't utilized, then they go back into the EIC's project funds.
Okay, because if I'm reading the numbers right, we're looking at a bid that's coming in over what we expected, but whatever. And it's 172 shy of whatever's there, 172,000. So where did we make the number 250 from? Like
It
what?
allows for a small degree of project contingency.
Which isn't built in their bid?
No, sir.
Okay.
All right, we're ready to vote on 3A. Do we hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that for 3A, we approve the First Amendment to the project funding agreement.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second.
All right, motion second. All in favor, let it be known by the raised hand. Okay, and the motion carries unanimously.
I just want to make one comment after the vote. I believe we all can agree, we just voted unanimously, that improving the tennis center is a desirable goal. However, the irony here is that we are willing to subsidize cost overruns for an amenity like tennis courts, but we didn't go I wrote down pry open the EIC vault a little bit more to ease the burden of our citizens with respect to the Legion lift station upgrades and the resulting water rate increases. I would like us to maybe consider that in the future a little more often. Thanks.
Okay, on 3B, that's the execution of a construction contract for the HEB Tennis Center renovation. I'd like to say something about that, but do we have a motion on 3B?
I'll make a motion that we authorize execution of a construction contract for the HEB Tennis Center in the amount of $1,453,939.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. My understanding is the way this remodeling, redoing of the tennis center, Mr. Hoppy, allows for one thing, certainly more participants, but it allows for more tournaments. Am I right?
Yes, sir. It will better accommodate tournaments from a number of fronts. Right now, there's the capacity of the flow of the facility does not lend itself to that, as well as other parking enhancements that are being made. The drainage flow when we get rain events is being altered, so the usable courts in bad weather events can occur quicker. So yes, absolutely, this will better accommodate. Certainly in the near-term phase, this is kind of the base foundation, and then in the future, if we have additional phases, we will definitely be able to better accommodate tournaments coming to the facility.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to make too much of this, but when you look at the number of tournaments that we have had at the sports complex, where you often have folks who come in and they spend 1 or 2 nights and they're in the restaurants and they're shopping and so forth, in addition to the tournaments, it really can have an impact economically. And so, I'm not saying the tennis areas can do the same thing, but it has more potential with this remodeling. All right, all in favor of that authorization? Let it be known by the raised hand. Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, 3C. Ms. Brown?
Report on granular activated carbon GAC benchtop study and third-party review of TTHM mitigation options.
Okay, Mr. Hoppy?
Mayor and Council, before you tonight, we presented within your agenda packet 3 reports, and there were various elements this achieved within the action items of your comprehensive planning document. Essentially, one of the main elements, as you recall, is that we are trying to solve the trihalomethane issue that we experience within our water treatment plant, and that's not uncommon across the state for surface water treatment because of the organic elements that wash into our river system and the use of the methods that we utilize at the water treatment plant. For that, TTHMs are often a byproduct. That, in combination of the hilly nature and the numerous pressure planes that we have across the community, that we have an exceptional TTHM program. And so what we've been tasked to do is to solve that problem and mitigate those elements from TCQ. We've been doing that, and we wanted to make sure that the system that has been recommended is actually going to work. And so we went through a benchtop study. That benchtop study did confirm that the method that has been recommended, which is a granular activated carbon system, essentially bolted onto our water treatment plant, is effective at reducing TTHMs to the level under TCEQ thresholds. It is also efficient within the bounds that we have planned for. We plan on additional testing should you all choose to move forward tonight with bidding that project. We're going to do some additional testing on enhancing the efficiency of that system, but the bottom line is that that system is absolutely effective. So we do have the 2 project engineers here to further elaborate on any questions you may have regarding the report, but ultimately we are prepared to go ahead and put this project out to bid tomorrow, so we can hopefully put that out for about 4 to 6 weeks and move forward in solving this issue and checking that box with TCEQ and getting our water quality to where it needs to be in relation to TTHMs.
Okay, all right. Council, do you have any questions or comments?
I have a few questions, Mayor. But will we continue to use our membrane system at all, and will we grow that also while using this?
We will absolutely continue to utilize our existing, this is an additional filtration step to our existing water treatment process.
Okay, and on top of this, will we still grow our membrane system? So don't we have capacity for more membranes, or is that not correct?
We absolutely could expand that system in the future. Okay. That's not part of this project,
okay, but
it could be expanded upon in the future.
We're not going to take that whole building down and everything.
That's right. Okay. They're not mutually exclusive. They are designed to work in conjunction with each other.
And kind of what disinfectant methods will be used? How does that process work?
Right. We continue to utilize the disinfection system that we're using right now. We are not recommending utilizing the chloramine system. There's a number of elements with chloramines that we don't. We've reviewed those items with council in the past, and council has not wanted to move in that direction.
And
that's really why we've gone the path of utilizing or exploring the granular activated carbon.
Okay. What other cities in our area are kind of using this, and how is this related to their issues?
Sure. I'm going to ask the project engineer to come up and further elaborate on some of the examples that they've seen in some of the other areas.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Kendall King. I'm with Friesen Nichols. I've got to apologize. Our process engineer that's responsible for doing this study wasn't able to attend tonight, so I'll try to answer your questions the best I can, but I'm admittedly a little out of my area of expertise on this, but I'll do the best I can. So I think you asked the question, what other cities are using this process? Is that your question?
Yes, sir. Kind of in our area, and how does this relate to our issue? What's a
Well, unfortunately, I'm not able to tell you off the top of my head who else is using GAC, but I can tell you that GAC is commonly used for absorption of these organic materials to help reduce the formation of THM, finished water. So I'm sorry I can't answer your question off the top.
That's okay. One other question is, what if this doesn't work? Do we continue to add on with GAC, or do we look at other methods to try to knock those down?
Well, I think if you looked at the study, you'll read in there, and also in the peer review that was done, the approach that we used in studying, in developing the design, and also for the bench scale study, were very, very conservative in our assumptions. We used a higher than average total organic carbon concentration in the bench scale study as compared to what you normally see in your system. The contact time that we used in the bench scale study was lower than what you'll have in the actual system. And then the study did not take into account the fact that you have a lot of groundwater in your system that doesn't contribute to those THMs. And so all of the assumptions, number of those assumptions were very, very conservative in developing the model that we have for being able to predict what the resultant TOC and THM will be in the finished water. So if for some reason conditions were worse than what we planned for in the study that we did, the result is that you may have to change out the carbon a little more often because that carbon is absorbing a little bit more organic material than what maybe we planned for. So that's your safety valve, I guess, to say, lacking in a better way to say it, is it would be maybe a little bit higher operating cost because you'd have to replace the carbon a little more often. But the process that we modeled in the study that we did shows that the carbon is very effective in removing that material.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions of council?
Yeah, I got a couple. The first one I think is probably to staff, but we didn't really get an explanation, but what was the need, or who called for this third-party review? I mean, what was the purpose of that?
We just wanted, before we move forward with a multi-million-dollar project, we wanted to just make sure we had independent verification that this was going to be an effective method.
So the city asked for that, not Freese and Nichols?
That's correct.
Okay. So then the other one is just a couple of questions within there, and it's probably more for him. But the first one is, it says in the third-party review, it says, what did it say? How do I read this? Doesn't third-party look seem to suggest that it may not alleviate the worst-case scenario? So it makes some comment about, it's worthy of noting that this may not be the worst-case scenario that we've benchmarked at, and if that was the case, how big of an impact would that be? Like, what would we do to change that?
Well, I think, first of all, what their comment meant was, the study was based on a running annual average of those THMs. I think I don't know for sure, but I think what they're inferring is you may have a worst case, more or less instantaneous or daily peak that wouldn't be reflected in the running average, annual running average. But that's really, I think it's a concern it's not a very big concern what they're talking about, because what we're really paying attention to is more long-term trends.
Okay.
And again, the answer to what do you do if we do have a higher than worse is just what I said before. There's conservatism in the design, both in the sizing of the reactors and also in the assumptions that we made on the effectiveness of the carbon, that it's conservatism on top of conservatism, and then the last result would be, to counter that, would be a more frequent replacement of the carbon.
Okay, and the other thing that I guess was in there, it said, they didn't review the full study, the third-party people, but it said something about that Freeze and Nichols, I guess, had discarded the possibility of using chloramines based on its problems with ASR use or something.
Well, they didn't know the entire history of the study and the discussions that have taken place in this body about the use of chloramines, and so they didn't have all the history as Mr. Hoppy referred to. You've looked at that question and decided that that's not the way you want it to go.
So we've looked at it? Is that what you're saying? So we decided against chloramines,
Yes.
not based on it being a problem with ASR wells. It was not. That wasn't the reason.
Well, that was one of the concerns, along with others in the process and operating, just the whole complication of trying to provide ammonia feed systems at different locations all around your distribution system, and the concern about putting chloramines in ASR. But these questions had been addressed and looked at in the past.
Okay, well, I mean, like I say, they were raised in the third-party review, so that's
Yeah.
where I'm getting it from.
I think that was just they didn't know the whole history of the project.
Okay, any other council members have a question?
One more, Mayor, I missed it. Just on this average $500,000 a year for the maintenance on the carbon. How are we, or I guess it's more for the city, how are we planning on covering that?
It's already programmed in our budget.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, do we have any individuals signed up to speak?
I just want to have one more question too.
Okay.
About the testing, would that be on a regular basis, on a quarterly basis, randomly? So that when will we know if we're over the limit or?
So per TCEQ, we test on a quarterly basis. We have to send in water samples to them, and they test. So we assume
Quarterly.
that that's going to continue to be how TCEQ requires that. They may require it in the future to monthly. Certainly, TCEQ likes to change their rules on a frequent basis. So that's some of the reason why we're here today, because they've changed the rules in the
Right.
past, and so we will operate within the bounds that they provide for us.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good, thank you. All right, do we have anyone signed up to speak to this? Okay, all right. Do I hear a motion in regard to this item?
Do we have to do anything?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we accept the report and authorize the GAC project bidding.
All right. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. We got a motion and a second. All in favor of 3C, if you'd let it be known by the raised hand. Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, 3D, Ms. Brown.
Third amendment to development agreement by and between Comanche Trace Ranch and Golf Club, LLLP, a Colorado limited liability limited partnership, and the City of Kerrville, Texas, for Comanche Trace Ranch and Golf Club.
Council, I think you all know that we've got a development agreement with Comanche Trace Ranch and Golf Club. It dates back to 1999. That's set to expire next month. Both sides have expressed an interest, at least from the staff level, of course, of negotiating either a new agreement or amending the current agreement. And frankly, we just ran out of time. And we felt like with one meeting to go, just one meeting in December and the holidays, go ahead and get this on the agenda and ask for what's essentially a year extension, and then the sides can get back together and negotiate kind of a path forward. So that's what we're asking you all to do tonight, is to agree to actually a third amendment to the agreement that'll extend the existing agreement out until December of next year.
All right, okay. On council, starting with Mr. Vocal and moving this way, questions or comments?
Both, just, so are we going to wait till next December just to start negotiations, or can we start that January? Because I have some things I'd like to discuss, and maybe that's with you or Mark or the council as a whole.
We've already been discussing it and negotiating with the Comanche Trace. So if there's items that you want us to be considered, then you can just share those with us.
Okay. Does it have to take till next December, or is it something we can work on? And if
No.
we get there earlier, that's fine. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Baruti?
It was more along those lines, but basically, because because I've been hearing about this being needing to be renegotiated pretty much since I got on council. So have we? You say, I mean, I'm not looking for negotiated points to be announced here, but what's the actual reason that a 20-year agreement we need the extension just to negotiate? Is there something is there a stumbling block in it?
I don't think so. I think we've had some good initial meetings, but I've got 2 pages of items that we're working on and trying to resolve. So none of them, I think, are necessarily deal killers, but they're just they take some time to work through.
All right. Okay, Ms. Ack.
No questions.
Well, I just want to say, I read the 67 pages last night after I got home from my Playhouse 2000 board meeting, and there was some interesting history in the meets and bounds section. That was interesting, but it was quite entertaining, actually, with all the history that's woven in and out of the agreement. So it was. I hope it stays within the 60-something range page. That would be nice. But I didn't have any other questions or comments.
Okay. Makes for great nighttime reading. Yeah. All right. Okay. Okay. On 3D, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve I guess it's an extension with the added hope that will speed up the negotiations.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Got a motion second. All those in favor, raised hand. Okay. Now, 3E, Ms. Brown.
I'm going to read 3E and 3F together. 3E is Economic Development Grant Agreement between Thompson Drive Partners, LLC, and the City of Kerrville, Texas Economic Improvement Corporation, and the City of Kerrville, Texas. And 3F is Economic Development Incentive Agreement between the City of Kerrville, Texas, and Thompson Drive Partners, LLC.
Okay, again, we will discuss these two together, but we will vote on them separately. Mr. Hoppy?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this item. As you mentioned, 2 separate items, one related to the EIC and one for potential oversizing of the project related to what the council had an opportunity to look at tonight. So project summary, as you know, you had an item that came before you in regards to the annexation and zoning of this property several months ago, but it is 60 acres of conceptualized mixed-use phase development along Thompson Road. Recently annexed into the city limits, as I mentioned before, approximately 1.85 to 1.95 in off-site infrastructure investment related to water and sewer, not including what the developer is required to do on-site related to their streets and roads and other infrastructure and collection system within the site itself, but purely off-site because there are no utilities, which has been identified as a barrier to development within really the entirety of that corridor. So mostly including sewer force main and gravity mains, lift stations, and water mains over to that site. This project was conceptually identified in the city's 2012 wastewater master plan. It was not launched off on because essentially the city has not prioritized funding to this region, and it just simply has been prioritized to other needs that were out there. So the developer made a request from the EIC of $850,000, and I'll go into some of the parameters by which that funding agreement or economic development grant agreement has been conceptualized by the EIC. So again, this is roughly the site, 59 to 60 acres located along Thompson Road, between Thompson Road and Nimitz Lake. This area has been zoned currently. You all made a decision to bring forth the adjacent zoning, which is W7, which allows some degree of mixed use. I know the developer is reviewing whether that meets the full degree of uses, not on debate for tonight, but I know that they are looking at that to make sure it meets the requirements that they are moving forward in. This was an item, Catalyst Area 3, which was identified within your comprehensive planning document. This is a little bit closer area. As you can see, that light blue along kind of the northeasterly boundary is within some of the floodplain. I know that the developer is looking at mitigation of some of that area to develop it more fully than what would be allowed right now. I know you can't probably read this on the screen, but a long history of EIC discussion with the developer dating back to August of 2017, essentially culminating in the public hearing that occurred on November 26th and the EIC passing that item, bringing it forward for your approval tonight. The basic tenets of the economic development grant agreement: the developer will annex and zone the property. That has been accomplished. The engineer will design and install approximately $1.85 million in the offsite water and wastewater infrastructure, which then will be deeded over to the city. They will be providing river trail easements along the boundary that joins Nimitz Lake, a park dedication element, as well as a trailhead, potential shared parking arrangement, conducting a traffic impact analysis. The EIC will in turn provide up to $850,000 to the developer in 3 equal installments, one installment at the completion of the annexation and the letting of the construction project, which has not occurred yet. The completion of the infrastructure and installation and the commencement on the work on the development phase 1, which is the 120 units of multifamily. And then a 3rd installment at the completion of phase 1 and the actual certificate of occupancy being issued. There is a clawback element that has been added to this development agreement that will be initiated essentially if no development occurs within a 2-year time frame, or if phase 1 is not completed within the 5-year time frame. And then the agreement also provides for a phased reservation of utility capacity. So essentially for the first 5 years of the project, the city, there's an inherent amount of oversizing built within the system. And so the city will have access to 20% of that to be able to provide to other development within the area. And the developer will have up to 80% of that capacity, 110,000 gallons per day. After the point of year 6, that percentage changes. And so if not utilized already by the developer, the city would have 60%, developer 40%. And then at year 10, if for some reason the capacity was not being utilized, the development didn't make, all of that money via the clawbacks would have already been refunded. The city would own all the infrastructure, and the city would have 100% of the capacity to utilize for any other development within that area. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on this item.
All right, let's start with Ms. Siegerman. Any questions?
No, I just want to, reiterate the positive impact this development will have on our city with a 30-year physical impact with over $63 million in economic development. So I think it's, and there's more. The list is long. So providing housing is probably the priority that we've been looking for a long time, and so therefore I'm ready to go.
Good. Zach?
I would just like to say it sounds like you've worked out the details, and appreciate that. I would also like to add I have just had good comments on how easy and agreeable, how well it has been, how easy it's been to work with the developers. And I've just heard some good comments and would like to thank them for that.
All right, good. Thank you. I don't have anything to add. I like the project. I will say this. Somebody must have had a lot of patience to go through this history of approval going back to August 4 of 2017. But anyway, just an observation. Mr. Baruti?
Yeah, I would commend the developers as well. I had conversations with them myself. I don't have any problems with the project itself. I think we all know I have a bit of a problem with the financing mechanism we're using, but that's neither here nor there, really. The one big problem I still have with the EIC funding is the term clawback being used for for water capacity. Truly, the only clawback we have is if they don't do the 120 units, then we get the money back. Is that correct? I mean, that's the only money coming back. is on that stipulation, right?
From a clawback of monetary value, yes, sir, that's correct. From a clawback of reservation
good enough, because
capacity,
that's what I'm talking
also
about.
correct,
is the
because
money.
the entirety of the infrastructure will be installed from the get-go.
Okay, so, but we don't receive any of our upfront money unless they do not turn in the 120 units, correct? 120 units is all we're really being guaranteed in this whole development, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, everybody does believe we need housing in the area, and one of the things that was in the funding agreement, I believe it's still in the funding agreement, is that this was anticipated to be workforce housing, which is, of course, an undefined term, but we have been told by the developer that this is going to be luxury apartments as opposed to what somebody would consider workforce. Is that correct?
My understanding is these are market rate multi-family apartments,
Okay,
120 units, market rate.
Right. Market rate luxury, which was the words that I think Justin...
Well, there's also just townhomes.
I understand. But the 120 units that we're building up front are luxury apartments.
They are considered, it is referenced, so we have an assurity of the quality level that is being built. It's actually referenced in the development agreement that these are Class A multifamily units, similar to the product that they had delivered at Orchard Grove in Fredericksburg.
Right. So that's the minimum quality.
Yes, sir.
Right. Nobody's questioning whether the quality is bad. I'm just, when we're talking about the difference between luxury and workforce, we're talking about the rent that's going to be paid. And currently our needs are workforce. Our need isn't luxury apartments. Our need is workforce. Not to say we turn away luxury. I'm just saying we're not meeting a need here. We're meeting a desire. And so that's the problems I have with the agreement as it stands. I'm going to have a problem, and it's not a surprise to Mr. McDonald because I spoke to him about this. Biggest problem I'm going to have is the appearance of how this was done, and it's the item that we'll be discussing afterwards, but it would have been my preference not to attach those items to this project. I would have preferred to be all gung-ho about this project because I do believe, developed fully, this is a good project. But unfortunately, the way it's being handled to the added maneuvering of not talking about an item that informs this decision prior to this decision, based on some presumed late attendees which haven't occurred, I find that also problematic to the whole business of transparency and what we actually are portraying to the public. But
okay, Mr. Vogel.
I also agree. I think it's going to be a great development. My biggest concerns are the infrastructure and how that's going to, the cost now versus the cost in the future, what methods we use. Do we kind of have a tax value cost of the property now versus the service cost per acre for all the improvements that the city will be getting?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
Like, how much city taxes are we going to be collecting off this property versus what it's going to cost to service all the infrastructure?
Are you talking about the overall full build-out of the property?
That, and
or
then
the
also
development of phase one?
Both, if you have those, or maybe if you just have phase one, that's fine.
Mm-hmm. So my understanding of the pro forma that has been presented is that the phase one of the development, and it's referenced within the development agreement, will be upwards of $8 million.
Taxable value, or those are the taxes we'll receive a year?
Taxable value.
Taxable, okay. I'll do that math later. How about the lift station and the force main? Say we do the lift station on James Road, and it's going to be a force main all the way to Lima Street. How much capacity will that hold as far as living units? How much extra capacity as far as full development will there be? I think before we'd emailed back and forth, maybe 60 units was kind of the threshold.
So right now it is being developed for 110,000 gallons per day. That is the base level. We'll be having a conversation about the oversizing that you all have directed us to look at, and that could potentially raise it to up to 370,000 gallons per day. So, and I just want to correct, it's not force main all the way to Limos. There is a portion of that is gravity main, And that's one of the oversizing portions that we're asking you all to provide policy direction to us on, because we are asking for that gravity main to potentially be oversized so that way additional capacity can flow through there and it's not a choke point in the future.
Sorry, I just meant getting it over the hill. That would be a lift
Yes, sir.
station.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
So say the return on investment for what we're doing right now will be 30 years, and 15 years later, we meet that threshold and we have to rip all that line out and do a new lift station. Would it not be smarter to go ahead and make as much as that gravity now so we're reducing the future costs for future development, or where do we balance that out?
Yes, sir. I agree with you. That is the next agenda item related to the oversizing. So, yeah, I absolutely want to have that conversation
Okay.
about that.
I'm just trying to look forward to the future that way. Just
Yes,
it's
sir.
going to cost a little more now to save money later.
Yes,
It might
sir.
be a better option.
Absolutely. And that's why staff wanted to go through that analysis, because we heard you loud and clear on that item.
So why don't we go ahead and go to the next agenda item, because we're taking these together, because I think that might answer some of your questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Gannon, I had a speaker. Do you want to wait until?
Let's deal with both of them, and then we'll vote separately, but we'll do the speakers right after this presentation.
Okay, so just to differentiate, this is an economic development agreement that is exclusive of the EIC on this portion. This would be directly between the development entity and the City of Kerrville itself. And this is under Chapter 380, so this is a different section of state law, different than what the EIC agreement is. Project summary, essentially, the city has authority within state law and our subdivision regulations to partner up with the developer for them to oversize infrastructure when we so desire, when you all provide us direction to do so. Anytime that we are asking them to do beyond what we would consider their pro rata share of the impact that they are having to the overall system. So not just necessarily their localized system, but the overall impact they're having to the water or wastewater system. However, the city has to fund that oversizing. And so this conversation really is about not whether we have the authority to do so, but really how we want to fund that, essentially. We've gone through negotiations with the developer, and they have been amenable to utilizing a Chapter 380 agreement, which essentially provides for a rebate of potential property tax collections to the city over a period of time to reimburse the developer for the oversized infrastructure that the city would be requesting. This is very small. Hopefully you can see it on your screen a little bit better. Essentially, there are three options that we went through. There's a basic option, which provides for the oversizing of the boring locations across some of the hills to get to the gravity main to go down to Francisco Limos, as we mentioned earlier. There is essentially providing a bigger casing so we could put a pipe through it, a bigger pipe in the future if we needed to. Go ahead and oversizing the gravity main at Francisco Limos to the maximum size that is being recommended by the engineers at this time, so that doesn't have to be replaced in the future. The entirety of those elements come to $100,000. If we were simply having the $100,000 discussion, we would probably just go to a water sewer fund or other elements to go ahead and fund that. But what we have explored per your direction is really expanding expansion scenarios of the water and wastewater system beyond that to serve a broader regional area along Thompson Road. And so with that, we looked at a number of options. We looked at exploring multiple lift station options. We looked at exploring the enhancement of gravity mains along the stretch of Thompson Road, lowering lift station. There is significant topographic challenges. Both of those are encapsulated within option 2A and option 2B. And those were approximately $850,000 over. So you've got the basic, which is what we just talked about, which was the EIC partnership component. You've got the kind of what I will say the small upsizing, which is option 1. Then you've got the regional upsizing, which is option 2A and 2B. 2A being more gravity main focused, 2B being more lift station focused, which staff was not recommending given the higher degree of maintenance that is required at multiple lift stations. We also have what we would call the worst case scenario because easements have not necessarily been required or not been achieved on all of these elements. If we were, we asked the engineer to look at an option where we would basically go within the existing right-of-way if we were not able to achieve easements to go across a less expensive option. And that was option 2A right-of-way, ROW. And that option was for a total of $1,050,000. And so that would achieve, again, as I mentioned earlier, the difference between the base level of 110,000 gallons per day and the expanded level of the 370,000 gallons per day. So I'll skip forward here. This map may be a little bit difficult to see, but essentially, the base option, you can see up in the top left-hand corner, that's the landing property that we're talking about. That's the 60 acres. You can see that kind of black dashed line that goes all around that area and services approximately 810 acres within that Thompson Road corridor. So that area could be served. Depending on, not to say that there won't be any upgrades ever necessary within that area, but certainly this option 2A right-of-way will better enable the city to serve that overall region in the future, should you all choose to move that direction.
Where's that proposed lift station? I'm confused on where boundary lines are.
Yeah, again, 2A right-of-way, that option maintains the lift station at the existing site with the basic, which is along James Road.
Can you point to it on the arrow where James Road is?
So James Road on that dashed line. Yeah, here we go.
Okay, so this is east of James Road towards the water treatment plant?
Yeah, this is James Road right here, and that lift station would be at this location.
So it's still going to be, the lift station is not going to be at the water treatment plant?
No, sir. No, sir. Option 2B evaluated the concept of putting a lift station at the water treatment plant, as well as a lift station, smaller lift station along James Road. And again, we did not further explore that option because of the long-term maintenance cost of having two lift stations.
Kind of what I was trying to get at, and I think you understood this the whole time, is Thompson Drive, in our wastewater master plan, Thompson Drive is all gravity, all the way down to the water treatment plant. And we can, I don't know how deep the airport area is, but that's about as deep as this would be, maybe a little bit deeper. What is the difficulty in doing that? Why would we not want to do gravity as much as we can and limit the future digging out of a smaller force main than we need and putting a bigger one in?
My understanding is that it cannot be served by gravity alone from that site.
By an engineer or by?
That's correct.
Okay.
Freeze and Nichols is here. They're the ones that create our master plan. Maybe we ask them.
Conceptual.
And that's fine. I think it can be done. I'm not an engineer. I understand that. I've worked with many and I've done some elevation work, and I think that it can definitely be done gravity. It's going to be deep, but it can be done. And that's something I would like for us to look into, and that's kind of like the airport. If we do it big enough, how did we do the airport? Did we just kind of throw some gravity in the ground and say, well, or did we dig it deep enough so future development doesn't have to put a bunch of force mains along the line?
Stuart, you've had some conversation with the engineer.
So to talk about what we did at the airport, the airport we did put in relatively deep. It's not the deepest sewer in the city, but they did hit some significant rock at the airport and lost a lot of money putting that in. This particular line, we are serving the whole sewer shed, gravity sewer. It's just flowing back to this lift station instead of flowing towards the wastewater treatment, the water treatment plant. And so all that area is serviced by gravity sewer. I'll go back to EA's drawing or map. So the dotted line there, it follows this whole area here. All of this area would be served through a gravity sewer that runs along Thompson Drive and then to this lift station. And this is option the 2B right-of-way. The other option, the 2A, comes through gravity sewer from about this point across the neighboring property and goes diagonal to the lift station itself right there. So this whole component right here is gravity sewer.
Stuart, you may also want to elaborate on the concerns the staff had about lift station being located so close to the water treatment plant.
So this is our drinking water supply. I mean, the further we can get away from it, the better. We have one on Knapp Road already. but there's some requirements for lift stations next to the water treatment plant. They're not tremendously close, but they're outside of our property, on neighboring property. So there could be some problems associated with that as well.
Have those changed since our wastewater master plan? Because that shows it right next to our water treatment plant.
So the wastewater master plan is conceptual, and they're just showing general alignments, and they want that to be refined as the developer comes into town and spends a little more time and energy figuring out the best solution for that. At that time, we were just putting dots on a map saying these properties have come to the city, and so we have a potential development in these areas, and this is kind of this is how much gallons per minute they would be generating.
Okay, this is kind of a pop test. I'd like for Bedford Mitchell, if you would, to summarize what what Stewart has said and EA has said. No. All right, okay, all right. Mr. Baruti?
Is he done?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I think, I've tried to discuss this for a while now, and these are the options we've been presented, and I don't agree with them, so that's fine.
Okay, all right. Mr. Baruti?
So put up the one that showed the option 1, 2, 3, or whatever we were calling them.
With the cost on it?
Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry. Okay. So yeah. I'm sorry. It's not there. That's the one. Okay. So what we're being presented, I assume we're being presented this and asking a question tonight. We're supposed to sort of choose an option. Are we given direction, or what are we trying to do with this?
Well, we have a recommendation, I think, in the agenda bill for which option.
The option that has been developed within your economic development grant agreement is it up to the $1,050,000 level, and that would accommodate the option 2A right-of-way. So that would be the worst-case scenario. If, for instance, we were able to acquire easements that could help reduce that, then that would be
Okay.
an avenue that we would pursue.
So you guys you're recommending option 2A right away.
That's correct.
Okay. So looking at this thing, the 380 agreement portion, if I was understanding your initial comments, is this not the amount that the city would be paying? Like if they were to do this development, the rough proportionality or that version of that, the city would be on the hook for this 380 agreement amount. Is that sort of what we're saying?
No, sir. This is for oversizing above what is needed to serve the landing on itself.
Okay, do we know what that amount would be? So if they were just doing a straight up development, they wanted to extend the utilities out to them, what portion of
The offsite requirement is our understanding, it was initially 1.85. Because it's taken over a year and a half, that has escalated to about 1.95.
So
that's
that
just
would've-
the offsite to serve the 60 acres of the land.
would that have been theirs? That's what I'm saying. I'm asking.
If EIC and had not
Skip who's
participated.
funding it. I'm saying the responsibility.
That would have been the responsibility, the cost.
So if we took option 2A right away, that's a grand total of $2.9 million to do that. Okay? So what portion of $2.9 million would have been, by right, the city's part of the tab? What would have been, Skip who's funding it, what would have been the responsibility of the developer? What portion of that?
The 1.95.
So that's their portion. So in this particular scenario, 2A right away, we're giving them EIC money for $850, and we're giving them money to cover what was our portion essentially anyways.
Yes, so there's two pieces. So the EIC helps subsidize because they are a first mover within that region, and so they're having to basically provide all of a significant portion of that offsite.
EIC is subsidizing their responsibility.
1.95. That's right, because they're a first mover in providing offsite infrastructure. The oversizing element would be a requirement of the city to achieve the balance of that 2.9. And that's what the secondary item is,
right?
The 2A right away.
I just wanted to clarify that what we're really doing here is the EIC portion is subsidizing the developer, what he would have been responsible for in the first place, and the 380 agreement is essentially us paying our fair share, and we're just choosing to pay that out of tax abatement, right?
And essentially what the EIC discussion was about helping encourage and catalyze development to occur, because there's a reason that it hasn't been expanded because it's expensive, because the offsite elements of having to get through and bore just have not been achievable.
Right.
There's that, and there's also the issue of the way that we're paying for the portion that you're saying, essentially would have been ours anyway. is, as you said, through tax abatement up to 10 years. So if 10 years goes by and they haven't built up enough to get reimbursed, they don't get any more money. So they do take some risk even on that piece. They're basically the bank and financing that section for us.
Right, I get it. That's one way of looking at it. The other is we're taking all the risk up front because we're giving them 2/3 of this amount. So I don't think my time was up. So basically, just to drive the point, that's the reason that right now, and as I discussed it with Mr. McDonald back in May, that's the reason that in my view, under the circumstances, with all the information that we know, it would have been, I think, more appropriate for us to be approving a 380 agreement or whatever it is to pay for that portion and not the other. So we've grouped two together. I'm just explaining preemptively why I'm going to vote no.
Okay.
I'm done. Don't buzz me.
Ms. Segerman, Ms. Eichner, anything else?
I think most of my questions have been answered.
Okay, Ms. Segerman?
No, as well. I don't have any at this time. We've
Okay.
asked
We'll vote on these separately, and we also will have a speaker. But one thing I want to say is this is the 15th time this organization has come before a city entity. And I think that kind of oversight and accountability is really good. Do we have anyone signed up to speak?
Yes, sir. Jim Bilta.
Okay.
Council, I'm Jim Bilta, and I live at 1520 Knapp Road, which is adjacent to the proposed development on the west side. I learned for the first time tonight what I perceive to be part of this economic development for developing a city park and a river trail. Is that correct, or is that not correct?
Mr. Hoppy?
Yes, sir. There is provision for an easement for a river trail element as well as a park within the EIC agreement.
Okay.
And that was discussed at the public hearing some months ago.
I want to point out to your attention that to do that would require the abandonment of Knapp Road, which is my only legal access to my property. It's a roadway that's been there for approximately 80 years. I voiced my objection to it before. I've been working with the developers to get an agreement where I would have other access that would be acceptable to us without a big diminution in our property value. And we don't have an agreement yet. We're close to an agreement. We've worked on an agreement. But at this time, I object to the closing of Knapp Road. I want it a public record that that's my only legal access. And also that the Texas Supreme Court on 2 different occasions has said you cannot close that road if a budding property owner with his only access objects. So that's where we stand on that road. Now, as far as where you use this money down there on the river, I've got no problem what's done. If we get an agreement where they do something on the road, I have no objection to the rest of it. And I have no objection to them getting the economic development money, except to the extent that it would, part of it would be for taking up my road and replacing it with something else. So I want to go on record again. I've been here before to do that. The developers have been very, very cordial in our discussions. And it's not just me, but my neighbors next to me, that's their access to their property, and it has been for 75 years. And they bought the property knowing that this road was there. I bought my property knowing that was my access. So we've got a problem on getting something done on that roadway. And I don't think you can approve anything to be done with that roadway without a abandonment, and that I do not believe can be done unless we reach an agreement on it. So I wanted you to be aware of that problem. I think it'll be worked out. Like I say, they've been cordial in our discussions, and I know they're discussing with my neighbors also other access. And we have no problem with them changing what they need to in their development to get that done. And I've told them I have no objection to what they change to get accommodations for other access for me and my neighbors. But you need to keep that in mind, that you cannot go and take that road out without some other provisions being made.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bilton.
Thank you.
Do we have any other speakers?
Mr. Mayor, may I speak?
If you signed a speaker's form,
To speak on this issue.
okay, go ahead, Mr. Cooper.
My name is Gary Cooper, 124 Aaron Drive. I'm here on behalf of myself, although I'm with the EIC, and I wanted to compliment the city staff on negotiating the transaction with the McDonald Corporation on this project. It was a long, I think the mayor has pointed out a couple of times, that this took quite a bit of time and quite a bit of patience. It took patience on behalf of the EIC as well as on behalf of the developer. And I think the negotiations came out well. There was a comment made that there would be a guarantee of 120 units. They were always purported to be market rate units, and there is no guarantee. The only good part about that, if they don't build it and get a certificate of occupancy, the city winds up with $1,950,000 worth of lines in lift stations for which we will pay $560,000, and that's a pretty good deal. My only, and this is a personal comment, there's nothing to do with my position on the EIC, but it's a personal comment. This was a long stretch, and it was requested that the approval by the EIC on this be delayed by the developer. Yet the developer made public complaints about how they were treated at the EIC in the newspaper. And I just took that, I just wanted to point out that I didn't think that was a fair comment, and I took it personally, and because I've just explained, it was a hard-fought deal, and it was very well done, and I didn't appreciate the fact that that was made. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Mr. Hoppy, okay,
go ahead.
what about what Mr. Bilda said in regard to the Knapp Road?
So I just want to clarify, Knapp Road isn't a part of the discussion tonight, but my understanding, as Mr. Bilton mentioned, that they are in conversation with the developer, and the developer, if I could bring up the PowerPoint again just real quick, I'll bring up an aerial, and I believe you all saw it in your annexation discussions. But there is a concept to essentially replace and evolve the hard surface infrastructure and the streetways within the development. And I apologize, it's at the very end here. Here we go. But this would provide access to adjacent properties. Again, this is Nimitz along this side. This is Thompson along this side. And so there would be a different level of access throughout this, but my understanding is they are in negotiation with these property owners on this side, and at the time that comes forward in a public avenue, certainly I think that will be buttoned up.
Okay, so we have the good word of the developers that the concern of Mr. Bilta will be addressed.
Yes, sir, and there are absolutely, if there's an abandonment of Knapp Road, there's further public processes that have to occur that are not a part in any way to this economic development agreement. This is purely water and wastewater related.
Okay, all right, okay.
So two things. One, that last point, because that's what I wanted to make sure you said, because that's the way I understand it as well. We're not really discussing the Knapp Road closure or not closure, but we will end up discussing that at some point. It's not really tied to this agreement.
That's correct.
But the other thing that Mr. Cooper brought up, while that may be what EIC was told and what may be even in the agreement, the agenda bill for tonight declares that this is workforce housing. So the payment 3 is being displayed there. So that's a point that needs to be, clarified, I guess. But anyways, that's all.
Okay, we're going to vote on 3E, the Economic Development Grant Agreement. Do I hear a motion on that?
I'll make a motion
All right.
that we approve the Economic Development Grant Agreement.
Okay. We have a second.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor of 3E, let it be known by the raised hand. And it passes 4, and all opposed by same sign. Okay. So, all right. Now 3F. Do we have a motion on that item?
I'll move that we authorize the city manager to finalize and execute the agreement. And do we need to put in the option that we're going to use on that?
Yes.
Yes. So I believe it's the option that has been recommended to a ROW.
Okay. All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Mayor, before, just to clarify, it's up to that amount, because we need to kind of work through what's the best solution, right?
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I got a question, Mayor.
Okay.
Do we have any maps of any of these options, or are they just kind of words?
We do.
I'd like to see those before I make a vote tonight.
Did you include maps?
The overall service map that is provided. We do have conceptual maps that I think have been provided to you in the past regarding option 2 and option 2A. Essentially a difference between gravity mains going across the adjacent property versus the 2 lift stations, and then 2A right-of-way, which is one that's being recommended and being explored, which has the predominantly gravity mains located again within the existing right-of-way, if easements aren't able to be achieved.
Mayor, I'd like to table this until we actually have time to review this under our procedure rules. I believe it is.
Okay. Is there a
4.6?
Well, you have
Yeah,
a
go
motion
ahead.
to do this. We actually would have to ask.
Yeah.
To,
Okay. The
to that point, though, what is the? Because I had the same concerns, to be honest, because we got the 380 agreement, we got to see it in the packet, same as everybody else for the first time. So this is the first chance we got to look at it. But if we were to do that and basically came back in January 8th, or that's our next meeting, what does that do to, it makes everybody uncomfortable, but what does that do to the project timelines?
let's see if we can proceed with it tonight. Would you temporarily withdraw your motion and second?
Was it your motion, I believe? 'Cause
Yeah.
you're the one-
Okay. Would you do that? Okay. Is there a motion to table this item?
I'd like to make a motion to table this item, seeing that we just were presented a document as the agenda item came up. I'd like to table it till the next meeting.
All right. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay. All right. All in favor of tabling this, let me know by the raised hand.
Question.
Wait.
Question. So what you're suggesting is tabling it simply to look at it.
Correct.
That you don't have enough information in front of you that you feel you can make a decision.
You can look at it. If you're comfortable with that, you can vote against tabling it.
But to answer a question,
I'm not comfortable. No, I'd like to review that a little more. That's kind of a hand sketch.
Well, again, I just want to reiterate that the visual representation of what was provided in the agenda packet and in the itemized list of the infrastructure that was listed and went out. So that's just a visual it is a hand sketch, conceptual drawing from the engineer of what essentially the infrastructure and the costs that were listed within the agenda packet.
Okay,
So
Mr. McDonald, have you filled out a speaker form?
No, sir, but I will.
Okay.
Ranger McDonald, 2951 Fall Creek Road, Kerrville, Texas. We've been at this 16 months. The 380 agreement is to accommodate the city. We are more than happy to either have it or not have it. You're leaving that straight up to further research, whatever you want to do on the 380 agreement, but we don't want to be postponed. We need to go forward. We need to start our engineering. We need to work out the options and not lose another month. We need to get moving on this thing. This isn't money for our benefit. This is what's being invested for the city. We're actually funding the city and taking the risk that we manage to get everything built that we think we can build so that we can get the tax benefits that will reimburse us. If we fail in that, we've just lost the money. We'll still owe the bank the money that we're going to have to borrow to put this infrastructure in, the oversizing in for the city. So we need to go. We need to not lose a month at this time, please.
Okay, all right. Okay, just a second, Ms. Eichner.
Well, another question. Will this change in a month?
No, ma'am.
It shouldn't, should it? I mean,
No,
this
ma'am.
is a conceptual.
The topographic area that Mr. Benson's done in relation to what it's going to drain is what we've done to try to accommodate the desires that were previously asked us, and it's not going to change.
And it doesn't look that complicated. I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
It's got dimensions, it's got everything. I mean.
All right. Comment, Mr. Broody, and then we'll move on to the vote.
I was just saying, I believe, I'm speaking out of turn, but I believe that his concerns are that if we agree to we're essentially choosing the option. That's the issue more than the money, I think, on what Mr. Vogel's talking about. So in choosing an option, we're moving forward with the direction that we're giving, and without seeing this ahead of time, it's that option choice that's the bigger problem, not the amount of money or of the tax abatement. And so that's really what the issue, I think, is about.
Okay, we have a motion to table this. We've got a second. All in favor? Raised hands. Okay, all opposed? By raised hands, and the motion to table fails, which goes back to the original motion Ms. Eichner made in regard to
No, she's got to make it again.
We have to.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. I move that we take the recommendation of the city, option 2A ROW, for finalizing and executing the agreement with Thompson Drive Partners, LLC.
All right, we got a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion second. All in favor of that motion, let it be known by the raised hand. And all opposed by like sign, and it passes 3-2.
I just want to say, Mayor, I'm voting against this because I would like more time to review it. I think I stated that.
Yeah, okay. We're going to move on to the next item, but I want to say to you, a couple of councils ago, we had a group of Boy Scouts, young Boy Scouts, down here on the front row. And about 3/4 of the way through the meeting, they were missing in action. They were, slumped over or, playing games. I see some of, so I let them go because they were here enough time for their merit badge. There's some of you I see that I may need. In fact, we're going to take a 10-minute recess after this next item. But anyway, okay. Ms. Brown.
Item 3G, deferred annexation agreement with Ocaso LLC for the property known as Ocaso Mobile Home Park at 102 Vogue Road at Blue Ridge.
Okay, Mr. Paxton.
Thank you, Mayor. The Ocaso Mobile Home Park has a previous agreement from the mid-2000s for tying on a portion of the mobile home park into the sanitary sewer system.
At that time, they had some failing on-site septic facilities. That was done through a UGRA grant and the City of Kerrville. At this time, they're asking to extend that agreement for another 20 units, that mobile home park, as the additional septic systems are failing. We've got some information from the County Environmental Health Department that they've been pumping on a regular basis because those septic systems are failing. And so they're just asking to tie on those additional 20 units to the sanitary sewer system. They are not contiguous, so they would not be eligible to petition for annexation. And with that gap between the current city limits and the adjacent property, at this time the city's not looking to annex that area. With that, I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
And so we receive the water sewer revenue from that. Okay. Council, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, is that gap bigger than a donut hole would be? That's just facetious, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay. All right. Hey, okay, this is, you go out Junction Highway.
Correct.
And over behind the big fireworks stand up that road?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, comments or questions?
I have a couple questions, Mayor.
Okay.
How far in the future are we expecting to annex, or is there a date?
Did not have any
Did not have a
proposal
date.
before us.
If we did, are we expected to annex a lot of the industrial area around there, or would it just be, do we have a future plan?
We don't have any future
plans. Okay, and will the sewer lines that are being installed, will that allow for future connections, or is that kind of the end of the line?
If I'm not mistaken, the additional connections that they're building would be all internal, so it'd be their own service lines. They're not extending any sewer mains.
Okay.
Is that correct, Stuart?
The sewer service is already extended through their property, and so it goes to the back of their property, but they are going to connect additional homes, so there will be no mains put in. There'll be all services to each individual home.
Okay.
But the property behind them is already technically set.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
If I may ask a serious question, and I don't deserve it, but the Rio Ranch restaurant, we did deferred annexation there as well, right?
That's correct.
In relation to this, where are we? I mean, as far as geography or whatever.
About a quarter of a mile west and 500 or 600 feet north of that, off Junction Highway.
Okay, so this one's more like we're not likely to annex. I mean, we don't have any idea that we're going to annex it anytime soon. The Rio Ranch one, I know it's not the topic, but did it have one to it? Did it have a deadline to it? I don't know. You're probably not allowed to answer that question.
I'm not sure. I'm not familiar enough with that project.
Okay, that's fine. I'll ask that later.
Okay.
It doesn't belong here. Sorry.
I'll follow up with you on that.
Okay, do we have a motion on this item? Do we have anyone to speak? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the deferred annexation agreement.
I'll second.
Okay, motion second. All in favor, let me know by the raised hand. All right, it passes unanimously. We're going to take a 10-minute break now, and then come back for the remainder. All right.
Oh, that was a good break.
Yeah, that was good.
Because we're welcoming her back, I just wanted to recognize Carolina Villapando over here. Raise your hand if you would. She started as a reporter here at Kerrville Daily Times, became editor, has been at the Tyler paper, and she's come back as publisher.
Welcome back.
All right. Okay, we move to item 3H. Brown?
Discussion and possible action regarding an appeal by Councilmember Baruti, whether a city council has the authority to prohibit one of its members from participating in all future discussion or communication regarding any matter to be considered by the full body of the city council.
Okay, Mr. Baruti, if you'll present this item.
Yeah. So basically, it's in the packet for the most part, what I would say, but to set the table, obviously, well, maybe it's not obvious. At a special meeting on November 8th, 2018, City Council voted 3-2 in favor of removing Councilmember Baruti, me, from, in quotes, from any further discussion or communication regarding the Lotus White Pier recovery lawsuit. So the lone action that prompted the special meeting was the act of making contact with the plaintiff attorney, one of them. And no claim has been made that I'm aware of that any information was provided or discussed, confidential or otherwise. No claim was made that I'm aware of any law being broken. No prohibition by any attorney was violated. There's a dispute about that. But so having said that, that sort of sets the table for what actually occurred. And my appeal is based on a couple of things, but basically Texas Penal Code does grant council authority to remove any person, whether a council member or otherwise, from a meeting where such person is being disruptive or hindering the proceedings. However, it does not grant authority for punitive measure preventing a person from any future proceedings based on a prior disruption. No local, state, or federal statute can be found that explicitly authorizes City Council to prohibit one of its own the opportunity to participate in council discussions or meetings under these circumstances. In fact, common law has firmly established that any governmental body must act as a body. The continued force of this particular common law has been proven over the years by being regularly cited in numerous court cases and Texas Attorney General opinions. For example, Attorney General opinion Jim Maddox 1004, which was from 1989. There's quite a few others. But anyways, in short, it said, a board which exercises authority delegated to it by the legislature must act thereon as a body at a stated meeting, or one properly called, and of which all members of such board have notice, or of which they are given an opportunity to attend. And that's coming from a case actually back in 1942. The purpose of this rule is to afford each member of the body opportunity to be present and to impart to his associates the benefit of his experiences, counsel, and judgment, and to bring to bear upon them the weight of his argument on the matter to be decided by the board, in order that the decision may be the composite judgment of the body as a whole. So the argument goes that if you're barring me from being a part of those discussions, you're essentially creating a situation that's a voidable act where we as a body would make a decision possibly on that, not as a complete body. Coincidentally, similar to how we handled the attorney and city manager evaluations. So one definition of hypocrisy is the practice of claiming to have moral standards or beliefs to which one's own behavior does not conform. The irony here is that I was accused of intending to disclose confidential information, but in fact never did intend nor actually disclose any information. However, my colleagues actually disclosed confidential information while trying to punish me for some perceived intent. As a duly elected council member, excluding personal conflicts, to the contrary, I am entitled by law to participate in any and all deliberations brought before this body. By appealing this improper action, I am not, some might call it an egregious action, I am not requesting an opinion nor asking for a favor. I am exercising a legally established right. So I would make a motion that the City Council rescind its action on November 8th as being unwarranted, unlawful, and improper, thus affording Councilmember Place 2 Baruti his lawful right to participate in any and all future discussions taken by the City Council to include the Lotus Pier recovery lawsuit, therefore allowing City Council to once again act as a body.
Okay, I'm going to put the city attorney on the spot. As you understand this process that was taken November 8th, was it legal?
Your process to exclude, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Councilmember Baruti from
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right. Do we have a second to this motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Got a motion, second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, if not,
Mr. Mayor, I signed up.
oh, I'm sorry,
I've got
okay.
several
All right, sorry.
speakers, yeah.
Ms. Summerlin, if you'll come forward. Do we have anybody else?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
She'll call
okay.
My name is Mary Ellen Summerlin, and I live at 105 Turnberry Circle. It is no surprise to find that Councilmember Baruti trusted his own judgment about what was best to do regarding the lawsuit against the city over the explicit advice of the Texas Municipal League attorney. Over the years I have known him, George has richly deserved the description I heard of him from someone who works with him in a totally different arena. Always the smartest guy in the room. I have known him to assume an expertise in fire safety better than the fire chiefs, an ability to interpret engineering documents better than either our own engineering staff or outside engineers, assert the ability to draft and interpret laws and contracts and ordinances better than our own attorney or outside attorneys, certainly to claim better understanding of city finances and economic decisions than the auditors and the accountants we hire or the staff who oversee our budget. All this without any professional degrees or licenses that I'm aware of. It gets a little tiresome, but this council has been more than patient. It started out trying to heal some of the divisions of the past by electing George mayor pro tem. Not a lot of extra authority with that designation, but an honor nonetheless. After 6 months of rejection of that olive branch, indeed of trying harder than ever to monkey wrench the work of the council, even to the point of spreading false rumors of plans to remove people from their homes, Councilman Baruti finally went too far. To tamper with an ongoing lawsuit with its normal risks to the city and the taxpayers after being warned not to make contact with those bringing the suit is such a reckless and arrogant move that the majority of the council rightly called him to account. They could not have done less and maintained the vow they all take to uphold the laws and constitution of this nation and this state. His behavior showed that he does not respect the public trust of his office. Only the voters can relieve Mr. Baruti of that office, and I hope they do next May. But the council removed his honorary title and his further participation in deliberations about the suit. Well done, appropriately done. People whose arrogance prevents them from seeing anything but their own point of view rarely perceive irony. But I cannot help remembering that about a year ago, George Baruti moved to oust Jim Wilson from the EIC after many years of dedicated and responsible service. At the time, he claimed that Jim was a threat because he intended to sue the city. There was no evidence of this beyond George's imaginative interpretation of comments taken out of context. But without evidence, without any hearing from Jim himself or any opportunity for him to speak, without any due process at all, the majority of the city council took that action. Somehow George, who now claims that no one can read his mind, did read Mr. Wilson's and abruptly removed him from office. Such egregious hypocrisy cancels out all Mr. Baruti's claims to high principles, wounded feelings, or innocent victimhood.
Okay, do we have another speaker?
Yes, sir. Maggie McGee.
Okay.
My name is Maggie McGee. I live at 2729 Indian Wells Drive. My comments are going to be brief. They're going to be general in nature and I hope aspirational in tone. Our community has just come off a high of months and months of working on the 2050 plan, with over 700 people involved in supporting that plan and looking to the future. We're now poised on a new era of quality community development and enhanced quality of life. But we must be aware that there are barriers to our successful forward movement. Some of them include attempts to endlessly relitigate items already voted on, already discussed, and already passed. Also, the use of any harmful or untrue scare tactics related to eminent domain or other real or imagined threats. A general obstructionism and negativity that squashes progress and really our own optimism about our future. So I would just end by saying I hope we can choose instead to go forward together, to finish the river trail from loop to loop, to revitalize our downtown area with the TERS and using other ways that we can work together to grow the downtown, to attract new jobs, expand existing businesses, build affordable housing for a workforce that's well-trained and able to live and enjoy a vibrant, walkable, bikeable, desirable community that will make us all proud. And I'd like to end by going back to Judy's invocation. This is a time for the spirit of Christmas. This is a time for coming together. This is a time to start anew for a new year with a new vision for who we can be, and I know we can do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jack Pratt?
Jack, yeah.
Mayor, Council, my name's Jack Pratt, 105 Deerwood. I'm a little confused about the agenda item, and I'll read. City Council has the authority to prohibit one of its members from participating in all future discussions or communications regarding any matter to be considered by the full body of the City Council. I assume that that agenda item was written by a council member. What I just heard is that that is not what is on the docket right now. What is on the docket is one incident, not all future communications, and I need clarification of that.
Let me attempt. Yes, of the one matter related to the federal lawsuit against the city by the Lotus Recovery Group, that Mr. Baruti is barred from confidential information regarding that.
On that one issue.
One issue.
That's my point. So now we have an agenda item here that has blown it out of proportion to all communications, which goes back to a previous speaker about creating something that doesn't exist. Now, having sat in your seat, let me draw some scenarios. If I'm on a board of directors of a company and somebody sues that company, and I go and talk to that aggressive suitor as a member of the board of directors, I probably will be fired immediately and may even be sued by that company. This city council is a board of directors. You're the board of directors of the City of Kerrville. Not one of you is entitled to go talk to any party that's suing the city. The city attorney is the one that represents you, no one else. Also heard from Mr. Baruti that nobody has challenged him. Yes, it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, when he went to that other attorney, he refused to talk to him and called the city attorney. Is that correct?
Yes.
If that's correct, then the attorney that he went to knew that he was wrong and it was unethical. That's an ethical issue. So now we have, let's draw another scenario. If you have somebody that sues the city because of an alleged offense by the police department, the fire department, EMS, or any other department in the city, and then a council member goes and talks to that attorney representing that person and suing them, we're setting a precedence here, and you can't set the precedence. It's absolutely understood by all city councils that I've been involved in that you do not talk, or any organization I've been involved in, You do not talk to an attorney that's suing the organization that you represent. Thank you.
I need to clarify something that I think you didn't clarify properly, which is the agenda item is very clear. It says, prohibit one of its members from participating in all future discussions or communications regarding any matter to be considered by the full body. So the any matter is this one matter, but it's all future discussions that I'm being prohibited from. And well, anyways,
Okay.
that's all.
Do we have another speaker?
Let me respond with that, because what is said here is not what he just said.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's another speaker.
Brenda Craig.
I'm not as tall as Mr. Pratt. Brenda Craig, my address is 2015 Vista Ridge here in Kerrville. And the action council took on November 8th was very appropriate in my opinion. Mr. Baruti's attempt to contact opposing counsel could have very likely put the city's lawsuit in jeopardy had he been successful in his attempt to contact the attorney. Counsel was cautioned against contacting the opposing attorney on the very night before Mr. Baruti attempted to negotiate a deal, basically, representing the city. The city council, as the governing body of the city, hired outside special legal counsel, I'm sure at a fee, to represent the city in a lawsuit. Mr. Baruti attempted to contact the opposing attorney to discuss the matter. This attempt was only unsuccessful due to the integrity of that opposing attorney. As to the email chain that's provided by Mr. Baruti from TML Legal Counsel, I noticed that Mr. Baruti failed to mention that counsel's decision was based on such inappropriate behavior as contacting an opposing legal counsel during an ongoing lawsuit. I think TML's opinion would likely change had the TML attorney been provided that information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have another speaker?
Mario Garcia.
Mario Garcia, 934 Pecan Street. I'm not as prepared as everybody else. I thought it was interesting to hear everybody else's point of view and their mindset. I've always been in the sense that I like the body. I like the whole body. It's very easy to see that these three vote a certain way and these two vote a certain way. And it's just, it's just what you see. It's, I'm being very observant. And I think the point of taking them out of it, I think, is actually reducing a voice. I always said if you have so many enemies, maybe you're doing something right. And if you take a look at the last two items that we listened to, I mean, there was so many questions coming from over here. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of enjoy the research and the questions that they come up with because it makes me think. It makes me understand whether I know everything. Did I even read it that same way? And so I've appreciated that. And I think taking that voice out, I think that hinders all of us. I think, I'm looking around. I don't think I have an enemy here. And I think if any of y'all do consider me an enemy, it's still my choice on the way I'm going to see you. And I think the divisions that we have up here, I enjoy them. And I think we need them. And I agree with kind of what some of the things that George said, the whole thing about the body and how we need to be as one. I like in some sense for a change to see if the mayor would tip over and see some sides over here, or I'm only just picking on him because he's in the middle, or, or stay over here. The other thing I think I'd like to propose is that y'all mix up y'all's chairs. You got to sit over here, you got to sit over here. I think mayor, maybe I would say maybe sit over on the side for one meeting, or one side, and just shift it up, just so, because if we sit there and have to sit with each other, we're probably going to have a conversation. And then I'll end it with this. It says, recognize yourself in he and she who are not like you and me. And then the last one I like down here, strength lies in differences, not in similarities. Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anybody else?
Michael Sigerman.
Sorry?
Michael Sigerman.
Okay.
Yes, my name is Michael Segerman. I live at 4,000 Comanche Trace Drive. And before I start, I'd like to address Mr. Robert White. If Mr. White wishes to speak on some of these issues, he should fill out a speaker form and come up here and speak instead of sitting in the corner and booing people that come up here to speak their mind, which is why we're here. I think that's good advice for you, Mr. White. If you want to speak, fill out a speaker form and come up here and speak and quit booing everyone.
Hey,
stop.
No. Hey, we've had outbursts before. Please don't do that.
My issue with this whole situation and with Mr. Baruti is, to start with, Mr. Baruti was elected as a city council person to represent all the city, not just the people he chooses to represent. I don't hear anywhere where Mr. Baruti chose to go and consult with the people that live in the neighborhood where they're trying to put another sober home to get their opinion. All he's done is consult with the people that have sued the city. He has consulted with the lady that runs the house since before the suit was submitted. He's consulted with the people, the plaintiffs in the lawsuit, since the lawsuit was filed on his own. He consulted with them after the meeting was over where he was removed instead of going to a scheduled emergency preparedness meeting that the city council was supposed to be with representatives from FEMA and experts that came from San Antonio to ensure that the citizens of Kerrville have the best possible preparedness. He chose, instead of going to that meeting, to leave this meeting where he was removed, go right outside and hold a meeting with the plaintiffs in the lawsuit right in the parking lot of City Hall. So I'm never a person that judges people on what I think they're going to say or what their intent and their mind is. All I know is Mr. Baruti chose against the best practices of any attorney representing anyone in a lawsuit, including anyone that would represent Mr. Baruti in a lawsuit, to go and try and meet with the plaintiffs who are suing the city with their counsel. It doesn't matter what he went there to discuss. That's not an issue here. What was in his heart, what was in his mind, what his intentions were. He chose to try and meet with the plaintiff's attorney who is suing the city that he represents. The plaintiff's attorney knew that it was wrong, knew that it was a mistake, told him he would not meet with him, informed the city attorney that he tried to meet with him, and in addition to that, the TML attorney that represents the city advised them not to do that and told and said it was wrong as well. So to have Mr. Baruti be a party to a lawsuit that we as citizens tend to suffer from, when he has constantly consulted with the plaintiffs, tried to meet with their attorney, I think it's a mistake, and I think the city council did the right thing by removing him from this specific issue. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have anyone else?
I'll speak for myself.
Okay. All right. Now, Mr. Baruti, we've got several more items, some of which may be contentious and take some time. I'm going to give you 3 minutes, if you want to take it, in response.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I should respond to anybody in particular, or just basically say that as far as the action taken versus the punishment, it's actually not what we're talking about here. As far as relitigating something, we're not relitigating the action. Bottom line is there's case law, it's a common law, there's attorney general opinions to back it up. We do not have the authority, nobody has the authority to remove a council member from, if it's one item, if you take that to its logical extension, you have the ability to remove them from multiple items. We don't have that. It's stated in many cases that that's just absolutely not allowed. It's a right of this body, it's an obligation of this body to make determinations as a body. You cannot do it in a place where it becomes avoidable action. If we take action where one of us was not given the opportunity to attend that discussion, that becomes avoidable action. Somebody has to sue to do it, but it's still something that's up there as voidable. This isn't about whether I should or shouldn't be punished. It's about whether this punishment itself has any standing in law. Somebody brought up precedent. you'd be setting precedent by following through on this action and not rescinding it, because it has no basis in law. As far as some of the claims people were just now making, we don't really have the facts behind those. Most notably, we were not explicitly told not to do something. That's just not accurate. But bigger than that, most of the people with the righteous indignation about going to an opposing attorney, it was just a year ago, and Ms. Summerlin is aware of this, that we had a situation here in the city, an ugly situation, where we, as a council, decided to do something. We terminated the city attorney's contract in order to renegotiate that contract. Not on council's say-so. I reached out to, on that evening, the city attorney made some comments that basically made it appear adversarial at that point. He read that action as a termination of employment. So, not on somebody's advice, I reached out to the city attorney the very next day, not to disclose confidential information, not to do anything other than do what's right by the citizens to make something that was bad better. Didn't make it perfect, but it got us to an agreement that communication had to begin somewhere, and it began there. So basically, the appeal isn't to ask, I'll state the same thing again, the one little sentence. It's not to ask, I'm not appealing this improper action. I'm not requesting an opinion nor asking for a favor. I am exercising a legally established right to participate in this body. And until you prove otherwise, I don't see how you can.
All right. Okay. We have a motion. And we have a second. Yeah. Yes. Mr. Baruti made a motion
at the end of my initial. I'll read it again if I have.
It'll be in the record. And Mr. Vocal.
Does she have it in the record? If she doesn't, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Vocal seconded. Okay. All in favor of Mr. Baruti's motion, if you'd let it be known by the raised hand. All right. All opposed by the same sign. What?
I'm sorry. I was opposing, not voting for.
Okay, you're opposing. So it's 3-2, and the action stands in regard to the legal issues there. Okay. The E3I, Ms. Brown.
Discussion and possible action regarding an alleged rent rebate offer in return for proof of voting in the most recent City of Kerrville municipal election held on May 5th, 2018.
Okay, this is another one of yours, Mr. Baruti. If you want.
Yeah, I put it on the agenda, but it's a council thing. So during the stuff's in the packet, but it's pretty concise, frankly. During the most recent municipal election held in Kerrville, May 5th, 2018, information was disclosed involving an alleged offer of $20 apartment rental rebates as an incentive for an apartment tenants to vote in the election. If confirmed, this alleged offer could be a violation of the Texas Penal Code and would represent an attack on a fair and free election. The alleged incident was reportedly sent to the Texas Attorney General's office for review in late April, according to the Daily Times article on April 27th, and remains under review to the best of my knowledge. The City Council does not have jurisdiction, obviously, to enforce a law or the authority to punish such transgressions. However, this matter continues to remain relevant locally. This incident not only occurred in the most recent election, but each council member takes an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of the state of Texas. Having a fiduciary responsibility to maintain public trust in government, City Council, at a minimum, should review, weigh in on the alleged attacks on its own fair and free democratic elections. The Texas Penal Code, it's in the packet, 3602 bribery statute affirmatively states, a person commits an offense if he intentionally or knowingly offers, confers, or agrees to confer on another any benefit as consideration for the recipient's vote as a voter. The statute further states an offense under this section is a felony of the second degree. The notice provided to the Daily Times back in April by Steve Schulte, General Counsel for McDonald Companies, stated that the rebate offer had been rescinded. Because an offer cannot be rescinded without previously being extended, it appears General Counsel was confirming the McDonald Company knowingly and intentionally made the original offer. While not a conviction of a crime, it is difficult to ignore that, put it all together, it stands as a clear admission of the commission of a second-degree felony. Again, unconvicted, uncharged, but affirmatively stated in the statute. All of us up here, the full council, did take that oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, laws of the United States and of the state. What could be more sacred to defend in a democracy than the execution of a fair and free election? This act was a blatant attack on the democracy that we are all sworn to uphold. Punishment is not the focus here. It can't be. However, to remain silent on the issue could easily be seen as this body condoning bribery. What's worse, remaining silent further erodes public trust in our government and its institutions at a time when public trust is already at all-time lows. Never mind the optics that the rent rebate offers were being made at political events for specific candidates, and the fact that it wouldn't be moved up ahead of information that would inform a previous item. So, having said all that, I would make a motion that council draft an affirmative statement about this council's stance on defense of its fair and free elections, and to send such letter to the Texas Attorney General stating its support of enforcement in voter bribery cases. That's my presentation.
Okay, do you have the proposed letter?
No, I make a motion that we draft one. I don't have a proposed letter.
All right, okay.
Don't we need a second?
Yeah. We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Do we have anything back from the Attorney General
No.
to begin with? Is there anything?
No.
Is anybody aware of anything?
No.
Other than it was sent in?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay. Do we? I'm a little confused because you want us to vote on a draft of a letter.
No.
Which we don't have.
No. I'll read the well, I won't read the motion. I said I'll make the motion to draft, for council to draft an affirmative statement. So the motion is to actually draft the letter and send it to the Attorney General. Yes, what goes in the letter is somewhat vague in general what I put here, but it's our stance on defense of its fair and free elections. Obviously, I'm pertaining to this sort of a thing. And send it to Texas Attorney General stating a support of enforcement of such cases. So I'm not providing the letter. I'm suggesting that we, with the help of staff, even.
But you're in support of the Attorney General taking action in that particular item?
No, in support of defending, as our oath says, defending the laws that are on the books. There's Texas 3602. So we're basically stating our support for that enforcement of fair and free election laws.
Yeah, which is so we go on record being for apple pie and motherhood.
I'm not really sure that that's what I said, but what the what are you asking what you'd be voting for?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're voting to craft a letter that is stating our position on enforcing voting election laws that pertain to our fair and free elections. Yes, I'm citing a particular one that's already under investigation, but that's.
And how will it be approved by the council?
Well, I'm giving direction. You can bring the letter back for approval. I don't have a problem modifying the motion to say that, but. Yeah.
Okay. As long as it's not addressing a particular case in which we're declaring as a council in Kerrville we're for democracy and fair voting.
Well, it's a little further. So we're declaring that, but we're declaring support of enforcement in voter bribery cases. So it's not a specific case, but that we wish for them to not ignore voter bribery cases. That's essentially what that's adding at the end.
You know what? I would suggest that we table this until we have a letter that we agree upon, and when we do agree upon that, then we'll send it on. So we got a motion and a second on the floor.
I would respectfully stand by my motion. It's vague enough with enough specificity where we would still get what you're talking about.
Can we call?
Yeah.
Do what? We have a speaker?
Richard Mosty?
Okay.
My name is Richard Mosty. I'm a lawyer, practiced in Kerrville for over 40 years. Actually reside in my family home in Childhood Home in Center Point. My trial practice doesn't often bring me before City Council, and so somebody asked me why I had been here the last few meetings, and I said, I heard that the circus came to town on Tuesday evenings, and I thought I might go. And it has not disappointed. I have represented the McDonald family interests before the 1980s, and I count them not only as clients, but as my good friends. And all of this is a thinly veiled attack on the McDonald company, and orchestrated primarily by Mr. Baruti, apparently, and apparently others. And I've looked at Mr. Baruti's agenda item, and I dare say that General Paxton does not need the advice of the City Council of Kirk County, Texas. Ms. Summerlin unfortunately stole a lot of inadvertently, she told a lot of what I was going to say. If you're going to recommend this, then I have here a packet of things to get out to vote, including a Beto medallion that you could get for Beto if you voted for Beto, Krispy Kreme, free donuts, the Austin paper, 20 or 30, get out to vote. Come with I voted sticker and you'll get free donuts, free whatever. Mr. Bruti's interpretation of the bribery statute is simply wrong. This was an encouragement to vote, just like these others. It turns out that we talk about a fair and free election. This fair and free election resulted in a 60-something percentage to 40-something percent vote in favor of the elected persons here. The McDonald Company had 37 votes of those who voted, 14% of the tenants, lower than the turnout rate for the city generally, less than 1% of the total votes cast in this election. It was an overwhelming mandate. When this council takes office, you undertake a public trust, and that public trust is to set aside your agenda, set aside your ego, leave personal vendettas at the door, and vote for what's best for the city. And that's not what's happening. Mr. Baruti has undergone legal, I hear engineering opinions, the Attorney General opinions. You've got a staff, listen to them. If in fact we're interested in a fair and free democracy, fair and free elections, I think we could take the words of the late President Bush to heart. He left, you might have seen, a letter after a very hotly contested election, he left a letter for President Clinton. And in that letter, he said, speaking on behalf of himself and Barbara, he said, when you read this letter, you will be our, and he underlined, our president. So I say, let's set aside personal agendas. Let's take our oath of office seriously. Let's accept the results of the elections, and let's move on.
Thank you. Okay. We've got a motion and a second.
I've got more speakers.
Oh, I'm sorry?
There's more speakers.
Okay.
Gary Cooper.
I've been up here more often tonight than I go to Walmart. That's very unusual. I generally do not come up here at all. I, too, am a retired attorney, and I can say that the facts underlying this particular agenda item were sufficient for the district attorney here in Kerrville to make a referral to the Attorney General of the state of Texas with respect to voter violations. And I think the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, as our Attorney General of the state of Texas, is fully capable, he and his staff, of rendering a decision with respect to the issues that are before him without my advice, without the advice of any other retired attorneys who are not on his staff or in his confidence, or even of this city council. I think that Ken Paxton will render a decision in this matter, and I think that everybody here, including this council, ought to accept that opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Brenda Craig.
Brenda Craig, okay.
Certainly not as tall as Mr. Cooper. Brenda Craig, address 2015 Vista Ridge. It is true what Mr. Baruti said, that City Council and staff do take the oaths that he has referred to. But I question what City Council member or City staff member offered a rebate. As far as I know, no one from the City Council or City staff offered a rebate. Therefore, there's no matter for City Council to discuss. I question why Mr. Baruti has not brought up national firms such as Chick-fil-A here locally for offering free drinks for voting. It's the same thing. But if City Council wants to send a letter to the Attorney General's office stating support of enforcement of voter bribery cases, then do so. But it should not refer to a specific issue that was clearly outside of the city's jurisdiction and is already under review by the state. Has nothing to do with the city of Kerrville. But I'm sure that if we do send a letter, the AG's office has a dead letter file that they can place it in.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay.
Jack Pratt.
The way I understand this came about because somebody volunteered to help people in the community get out and vote. That's what we all should be doing. They weren't trying to get somebody to vote on one particular person or party. It was get out to vote. Now, since this is on the agenda, I would encourage the city council to consider changing its voting dates to get more people to vote, because our voting dates are in the dead part of people participating. Let's move city council elections to November, where everybody votes and you have higher participation among the voters.
Okay, thank you.
Bruce Strecky.
Bruce?
Secretary, my points have been covered very well.
Okay.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of that motion, which is to pursue this with a letter to the AG, if you would let it be known, if you're in favor of that, let it be known by the raised hands. All right. And any opposed by a like sign is 3-2. Okay. All right. 3J.
I have to recuse myself. This is the TERS.
Yeah, so you're leaving, okay. Mr. Vocal is leaving because of the place of their business in the TERS zone. All right. Okay, who brought this on the agenda?
Me.
You did. Okay, Mr. Broody, would you respond?
Item 3J is discussion and possible action to consider modifying the TERS number 1 City of Kerrville project plan to include language prohibiting the use of eminent domain or condemnation in order to support implementation of the project plan within the boundaries of the TERS number 1.
Okay, Mr. Broody?
Okay, so what's basically it places, and contrary to what some of you probably will step up and say, this is not relitigating something. This is actually looking to do something similar to what we did with the River Trail Master Plan a couple meetings ago. But basically, at the September 25th City Council meeting, the TERS number 1 City of Kerrville project plan was officially created by Ordinance 2018-19. During the public input sessions prior to adoption, many citizens, not just me, both inside and outside the TERS number 1 boundary, expressed concerns regarding possible wide-ranging power and use of eminent domain and condemnation to acquire property in support of implementing this TERS project plan. In response to the concerns, the creation ordinance was modified at the last minute to include the following language. It says, for purposes of clarification, these findings and declarations are not intended to declare any particular property in the zone as blighted, are not intended to support a finding that property is a slum or blighted area for purposes of Section 2206 of the Texas Government Code, and will require an independent future finding by a governmental entity that a property is a slum or blighted area for purposes of Section 2206. So while the language chosen does clarify intent or attempts to, it stops truly far short of prohibiting the use of eminent domain or condemnation in order to implement the project plan. And according to the consultant that was here, Jim Plummer, the language does not have any binding effect on the TERS rules and regulations that already existed, and therefore the fears and concerns of those citizens that were raising those concerns remain unaddressed. The at issue really is, it's in the backup of the packet, is the actual codes that the property tax codes that define a TERS. But more than anything, we never did, as the consultant was trying to say, there's no term blight or anything in our TERS creation ordinance. That's accurate. But the TERS rules don't require you to define something as blighted. They simply say that the reasons that you created the TERS are things like substantially arrest, or if the land substantially arrests or impairs the sound growth of the municipality, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes on to say that the enforcement or the implementation of it can utilize, the municipality can acquire real property by purchase, condemnation, or other means, and sell real property on the terms and conditions in the manner it considers to be advisable. The powers authorized by that prevail over any law or municipal charter to the contrary. Therefore, whatever we put, whatever's out there people point to, as long as you're implementing the TERS project plan, you are allowed to acquire real property using condemnation or eminent domain, because that will not be your primary focus. It will be implementing the project plan. So the goal of here is to essentially affirm the intent of everybody that was up here, because they all said, we won't do that. We don't want to do that. We don't intend to do it. So I'm just saying, rather than just leave it out there as we don't intend to, but oops, it may happen, why don't we just prohibit it? So the motion I'd make is I wish for council to consider, and I would make a motion that we amend the TERS number 1 creation ordinance 2018-19, or we direct staff to do this, to contain an explicit prohibition against utilization of eminent domain or condemnation in implementing the project plan within TERS 1 boundary. And to those who are going to say, well, it already does that, it truly does not. And so all I'm looking for here is add language to it that truly explicitly prohibits eminent domain or condemnation from being used within the TERS.
Okay, motion has been made. Is there a second?
Can we have some discussion first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Going back to 9/11 was when actually to March was the first workshop we had at Callow regarding the TERS. We've had 12 meetings since then, each which, I'd say 3 of the times we had David Pettit, who I think was the consultant, here, who addressed eminent domain twice. Very specifically, TERS cannot enforce eminent domain. The city currently has that right and will continue to have that right. That's one of the tools the city has. And to say we're going to tie the hands of our future council and city officials by making this prohibitive language in this TERS, it's almost like saying we won't raise taxes. Well, I don't want taxes to be raised, but I can't make that claim now, and I certainly won't do it with eminent domain. So I'm not in favor of adding this wording. I think it's very prohibitive. I think the river trail wouldn't exist if we didn't have eminent domain. Cities across Texas use eminent domain for all kinds of purposes, and I don't know one person that's been removed from their home in Kerrville for eminent domain. We have easements on the river trail, which gives us all access to the river trail, which we used very successfully. Owners were paid very market prices for their property, and we now have the ability to enjoy the river from all aspects. So I think it's been given a bad deal, the words eminent domain, and I think that's unfortunate because I don't think it's supposed to be interpreted that way if we're going to move forward going into our 2050 plan. So,
okay, is there a second?
Well, let me respond to the discussion, and then we'll ask for the second. Because basically, it's real short. It has been given a bad rap, but this isn't about giving it a good rap or a bad rap. It's just as simple as the same statement we made on the River Trail Master Plan recently is to make this: Are we going to wave that stick of possibility for this or not? Everybody said we don't do that in Kerrville, so this is really just reaffirming that. If you choose not to, that's of course you're doing, but that's the contrasted decision between what I'm suggesting and what you're suggesting. Is are you for or against the possibility of using it?
All right, let me say this, then I'll ask again if there's a second. Since 2000, the city has used eminent domain 4 times. And in every instance, the individual is compensated for their property. We wouldn't have Holdsworth Drive if we didn't have eminent domain. One holdout. We wouldn't have the river trail. So the city does not use eminent domain, indiscriminately. But so I don't think we ought to pursue this. But we're not going to pursue it if there's not a second. Okay, it dies for lack of a second. Let's go. Any public comment? Okay. Okay, all right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The 3K.
Yeah, we got bring Fitz back in.
Yeah. Ms. Brown? Okay, yeah.
Item 3.3 is discussion and possible action. Follow up on citizens' request to examine the discussion and actions taken by City Council on November 8th, 2018 to determine if they constituted a procedural and/or ethical violation, review ethics and procedural rules, and possible action moving forward.
Okay, Mr. Vogel, this is yours if you'll present it.
Yes, sir. After having a citizen bring this up at a council meeting and multiple citizens asked me about this, I thought it should be discussed. But it seems like the action that was taken on November 8th was against our ethics, in my opinion. Council based a lot of the decision on intent and motive. And there was also some confidential information read during the meeting off a letter. I've also added the workshop discussion to show that ethics is brought up when there's been disagreement on issues. And I don't really want to point fingers at everybody, and I think we need to quit pointing fingers at people, and we need to find a way to work together, even if that's focusing on just some common goals we have. I'd like to kind of go back to what we discussed at our retreat. I thought we walked away with some really good ideas. We're supposed to all three put 3 action items together and kind of work towards those within this first year. And we haven't done that, and at least I haven't seen us do that, and I would like to see us do that. And maybe the action moving forward is just creating a workshop to discuss everything we did at the retreat. Because again, I thought as much as we could have bonded, we kind of did it there, and we've kind of left. We're completely gone from that. And I'm tired of pointing fingers. I'm tired of, it comes from all of us. It comes from the public. We're not doing anything productive, and we have to if we want to be an actual real council. This is my hometown. I'm very disappointed in what's been going on. It's hard for me to do this, but I would like to see us somehow come together. Even if it's 2 common goals that we can achieve by May, let's give it a shot.
All right. Okay.
Can I say something?
Thank you. Thank you.
I reached out to you and sent you an email because I wasn't sure. Did you get that email? It was
Yeah,
about
I
a
did.
week and a
I
half
did.
ago, but I didn't hear from you because I was reaching out to you to say, what's your point? What can we discuss about this? And I didn't hear from you, so I'm just wondering.
I should have handled that better, but I kind of did the same thing on the November 8th meeting. And it's like, you're going to treat people like we want to be treated. And we can do this till May, or we can actually quit pointing at each other and do something
I think
together.
we are doing a lot. I think we're voting some very productive agenda items, actually. So
let me ask you this, and I agree with you, Vincent. I really do. So what is your motion in regard to this?
My motion would be just to create a workshop where we go over our common goals that we created during our retreat.
Okay. So the motion is to create a workshop, go over the common goals that we saw at the retreat.
That we all created together, yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm gonna.
I'll second that.
Yeah. Ms. Ochner seconded that. Any discussion?
Yeah. Are there speakers?
Do we have a speaker? Okay.
Are you ready for
Yeah.
Jack Pratt?
I'll pass.
Okay.
Jim Bilta?
I think I put down the wrong.
Okay.
All right.
Brenda
Okay.
Craig?
I agree with Mr. Vogel. There's much too much decisiveness. This is just very disruptive, and it's not good for the community. And I think if we could maybe have more cohesiveness among city council, that would be very good. I had planned to speak because I thought this issue was going to be about the mayor pro tem issue, and that's my misunderstanding. But I support what Mr. Vogel's trying to do.
Okay. All right. All right. Anybody else?
I'll withdraw my pass. I'd like to hang in a couple.
Okay.
When I was elected mayor, first week I was reminded by a council member from the diocese, every one of you only have one vote. Once a decision is made, regardless whether it's in my favor or not, you ought to become one body and go along with what council as a whole decided.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I agree.
Okay, we're gonna go to a vote on this.
Are there other speakers?
Do we have another? Okay.
All right. Well, I got a little bit of discussion though, because I came prepared with the same sort of stuff that Vincent was talking about. I had this. I mentioned him earlier, and I hope he's watching. Or he says he watches sometimes. We do waste way too much time. But as far as this obsession with trying to point fingers instead of discussing the issues, this is the 5th meeting that we have spent trying to bring George Baruti up on ethics charges. Not one of them really stuck, but we spent July 24th, August 14th, September 18th, November 8th, and now today. All about one thing. Not a single issue being talked about, just about that. It's like, what are we doing? But the person that I was bringing up is Warren Ferguson. He's on council, and he was basically exactly what you hope for in a councilman, because and I didn't know him when I first got on council, but I grew to like him as a person, and no matter what the issues were, we could differ on them, but it was still a congenial thing afterwards. Talking to him, friendly conversations over at the River Trail ribbon cutting. And basically before he stepped off council, I went to him more than one occasion asking him to reconsider, because I told him, basically, what's nice about working with him is I knew that when I was discussing something with him, we were discussing the issue, we weren't discussing personalities, and if he had a personal agenda or if he had a hidden agenda, it never played in. We just discussed the issues. We didn't agree on them all the time, but it didn't matter, because what we were doing was the work of the people, because we were debating the issue, which is not what this council does. And at some point, that's going to have to weigh in on how we function as a body. Just like the previous action, excluding one from the body, it's not a unified body at that point. And so again, I mean, if he's listening, by all means reapply, because it's that style that's necessary here. That's true unification, because he's working towards a middle ground. He's not saying it's my way or your way. He's saying let's find a way, and that's missing.
I would be a little defensive at the point of what the council is getting done. If you look at the comprehensive plan, TERS, the annexations that have happened, a variety of other things, if you look at the thickness of every notebook, every agenda notebook that we have, I think we're getting a lot done. Let's move on. We have a motion and a second to create a workshop.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I was handed another speaker form.
Okay.
Renee LaFaso.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Renee Brooks LaFaso, also Massey. I'm at 24727 State Highway 16 North. I'll just read something. Narcissists are notorious conversation interrupters. They love to be the center of attention and control the focus of the conversation. They have no interest in having a two-way discussion with you. If you dare attempt to get a word in edgewise or make your point of view heard, if at all, it contradicts the narcissist's point of view, your opinions will most likely be ignored and dismissed. Let's see, scrolling down a little bit. Hold on, 3 minutes, 33 seconds. Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Be kind and brief.
Oh, I'm being kind and brief. Oh, yeah. They genuinely have zero interest in hearing other people's viewpoints or reaching compromises or win-win solutions to disagreements. They have a my way or the highway frame of mind, and interpreting allows them to control the conversation and manage it. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
I'm sorry, Mayor. Mrs. Summerlin, did you want to speak? No, ma'am.
No. Okay. All right. Then we're going to vote. All in favor of creating the workshop that Mr. Vocal proposed, and looking back at our retreat agenda that we earlier did. If you're in favor of that, let it be known by the raised hand. Okay. Good. Okay. 3L, Ms. Brown?
On November 27th, 2018, the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of the City Council that was held on October 23rd was tabled. Councilmember Brody requested changes to the minutes, and in your packet were both the original minutes and Mr. Brody's red line version.
All right, let's discuss this. Ms. Siegerman, any comment?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the city secretary's minutes as presented.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, got a motion, a second, to approve the city secretary's minutes.
We'll need to discuss. I'm seeing as how I submitted some edits, right?
Okay, are you going to go through all of your edits?
There aren't that many. I mean,
Okay.
bottom line is simple as this. The minutes that we've now been presented as original were not the original minutes we presented. Okay? So on November 27th, we were handed in our packet a set of minutes that did not include item 7C. They also did not include the closing in the correct fashion. So what I did was submit a request to edit the minutes to include 7C and to include the corrected ending of the meeting. And so the 7C is already being put in there, which is good. It's in there right after consent agenda. It's in the stuff. And the closing of the meeting, if you look at the red line version that I guess you have in front of you, with the packet. So let me get to it myself. 168. At the end of the meeting, if you'll recall, you adjourned the meeting before we had 2 items disposed of off the agenda. If we don't do these edits, then the minutes will not reflect what was actually on the agenda nor what we did. Because if you take out the red line stuff, it just says the meeting was adjourned at 8:06 p.m. Mr. Baruti requested the council reconvene to discuss the evaluations of city attorney and city manager that were done in a special executive session meeting on 10/22. That isn't accurate. What I did was ask that we reconvene to address the 2 posted agenda items, 10A and 10B, that had not yet been addressed. So that's the first correction, essentially.
Okay. Mr. Vocal? I'm sorry.
Well, let me just...
Yeah, I do recall those being on the agenda.
Okay.
And so then the extra thing was I made a motion. It has in there where I made the motion being under items of future agenda or something like that, and it didn't happen there. It was under executive session was 10A and 10B. I made a motion to go into executive session under 551074, which is what I've added in, to discuss agenda items 10A and 10B, and the information about that motion failing it still holds up. But the version that you're looking at in the packet now isn't, the red line stuff isn't even where I submitted it. Okay, so that's kind of the problem with it.
Okay. All right, Mr. Vocal? Any comments or questions?
That's kind of how I know. I recall them being 10A and 10B were on the agenda, and that seems like the way it kind of played out. I watched the video over the weekend, and that's pretty accurate as how I remember viewing it.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment, any speakers? Okay. All right.
So Ms. Siegerman, just to clarify, you're okay with providing minutes that are actually inaccurate to what occurred?
No, I'm curious. Did you submit the 10A and 10B to be on the agenda in the first place?
They were on the agenda, and yes, I submitted them.
Was it your request?
Yes.
Okay, and I think it stems from the fact you missed the meeting, that we had the evaluation. And I'm not sure why you had a week to arrange your calendar, but for some reason you weren't able to.
Okay, I don't think we're
think
discussing that right now.
Yeah,
but
let's
if you want to,
let's don't revisit that.
Okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to, would you?
I'd be glad to. All right, we got a motion.
Yeah.
We got a second to approve the city secretary's minutes. All in favor, let it be known by the raised hand. And any opposed by a like sign, and it is 3-2. Okay. On the 3M minutes for the special city council meeting held on November 8th. Sorry, I took your words, Ms. Brown. So, okay.
Minutes for the special city council meeting held on November 8th. You've got the original minutes and Mr. Baruti's red line version.
All right. Okay. I'm going to start with the other side over here with Mr. Vocal. Any comments or questions, and we'll come this way.
It's just, it's kind of again, I watched the videos. Just kind of how it took place. The additions.
Okay. Mr. Broody?
That's basically it. The chronology of it has been reordered to match what happened. And if you recall the motion that was made, I asked Ms. Eichner to specifically add these words in there for the express purpose of getting them into the minutes. And she obliged and added them in. So I just added them in.
Okay. Let me say two things. The city secretary has the video recording and so forth and notes as we go to create the minutes. And we're looking to make those much shorter so that the record of the meeting is actually the video. And I would say, along the way, anybody can go back and look at the video and see what happened. Ms. Eichner?
I just think it's a matter of wordsmithing. I don't see that I think it all says the same thing in just different ways.
Okay.
To that, and I'll let you guys vote it down all you want. I'm not going to even make the motion. But basically, this isn't wordsmithing. This is actually making something that's inaccurate accurate to both the chronology and the actual facts. Because I did not request that I didn't state that the matter on the agenda should be discussed in open session, not closed. I actually cited, the way I'm supposed to, the Government Code 551074B, requesting that it be held in public. And what this is doing is it conveys a different meaning. And so it's to make it accurate. But I'm not even going to make the motion to accept these.
Okay.
I wish somebody would, but I'm not going to sit here and have an
I would
argument
like to
about
ask
it.
a question because as an education, being on council, I learned exactly what verbatim minutes, we don't do verbatim minutes. Is that correct? Probably because of this very reason. So we are trying to get to a point where if you really want exactly what happened, you can go to a video and hear every word, every expression, every a, I, it, whatever. Because I do think some things get lost in interpretation just because of other things that come up. And I know we've had to kind of, maneuver the right minutes in, and sometimes that still doesn't work. So it's a big effort to make sure it gets. So I think we need to make these minutes more action only and less about the details. And if you want more of the details, you can go to a video and get them as accurate as possible. So
chronology is not the same as wordsmithing.
All right.
If we put 7C before 7A,
okay.
It's not accurate.
All right. For lack of a motion, we're moving on to 4A. Okay. All right. Okay. So.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, you'll make a motion.
That we approve the original minutes by the city secretary.
Original minutes by the city secretary. Okay.
Do
we have a second?
November 8th.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion second. All in favor of that, let know by the raised hand. And any opposed? And it's 4 to 1.
I oppose.
You're opposed, okay. So it's 3.
I voted on what I saw in the video to be accurate.
Okay.
Whether y'all wanted it or not, that's up to y'all.
Okay. It's 3-2. Appointment to the Library Advisory Board. Ms. Brown?
We have one opening for a term that is up to expire, and the person who holds that term currently has applied for reappointment.
Okay. All right. So, do I hear a motion in regard to that reappointment?
I move that we reappoint Carol Wickman to the Library Advisory Board.
I'll second it.
Okay. Got a motion second. All in favor? Let's by the upraised hand. Great. We are back to unanimous. All right. Appointments to the Recovery Community Coalition. Ms. Brown?
We have 2 vacancies that are vacant because of resignations, and you have the applications that I emailed to you earlier this week, and they all are qualified. And I will say that there are spots that are coming up on this board that will be filled at the next meeting, at the January meeting.
We didn't have enough applications, so we're waiting until the January 8th meeting, and they will be on your agenda for that as well.
All right. I'm going to jump in and make 2 nominations, and that's Kara Grant and Marissa Dodson.
Making a motion?
Yeah, making a motion.
Okay.
Did we have an interview team on this?
Yes.
We did.
Yes.
Who was that?
Yes.
There's Judy and I.
Yeah.
Judy,
Yeah.
and we discussed this kind of earlier today, and I do have one concern because we don't have an MHDD position to fill. No one is listed as a number 7 on there, and I don't. Are all the ones that are okay? Are all the ones that are terming out? Are they reapplying?
I don't have those
We don't-
applications
okay.
at this time.
Okay, well that's fair enough because I don't want to
I spoke with
shortchange.
Chief Smith, and he is going to contact them again and ask them
Okay.
to submit their application, but I don't have them that's why they're not on this agenda.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so wait. So
We don't have a number. We don't have an MHDD
on the board right now.
Right.
Okay,
And
so
we didn't have an application.
We don't have one that's
Okay,
applied.
so then what we're left with is if we only have one opening, I mean, we have 2 openings, only one of them can be filled by a non-number 7, right?
Well, we can fill them both, but that would have to be up to the whole council without.
We'd be changing the rules at that point, right? Or what's involved in that? Okay, because essentially we'd be filling the position without following the rules of the board setup. You know what I'm saying?
Can we kind of overrule the rules right now
Can we do
by
that
appointing
in one-
both of those without?
Well, right now, the rules, since we don't have someone in that position, it's outside the requirements right now. But I think what we should do, we don't have any applicants. I think I've been in touch with that organization, and I think we need to talk with them, see if we can't get someone in there and look at it when we do our next appointment.
I would think we want to just fill one of these spots.
I would like to leave room for a number 7, but I don't
go
know.
and go actively recruit. That's what we've done in the past when we had this similar sort of situation. If we believe that the structure of that board is proper, then I think that's what we should be doing. I mean, that's just my thought.
If we all agree to that, we could do
Cheryl,
that.
So no one said that they want to term out and not reapply.
I have not spoken with anyone.
Chief Smith, can you?
As of December 31st, 2018, we will have 4 members on the board that will term out. There will be some reappointments. Some have submitted applications at this time. I don't know if it'll be all 4, but it would probably be a good idea just to fill the one, leave the MHDD position open. I think it's a good position to have on the RCC board.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Okay. So we're talking about it's advisable to go with one person.
Leave the 7 open until the next appointments. And go and make one appointment tonight.
Okay. All right.
If the 2, I'd like to hear what the interview. I mean, if
Yeah,
we were
yeah.
doing that, what would
Judy and I kind of discussed Kara Grant. If that's, you mentioned one of those,
Yeah,
Mayor. Is
yeah.
one of those-
Yes.
That's,
And she has applied before. She has
I
been on
talked
the
to her,
list
yeah,
before.
She seemed pretty excited.
Mayor, I'm sorry, you've made a motion,
Mhm.
and I need you to withdraw that or amend it.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I withdraw my motion for those 2 individuals, and okay, we're all right to proceed with Kara, and we named 1 tonight.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We're in agreement.
All right. You want to move?
I'll move
Make that
to appoint Kara Grant to Recovery Community Coalition.
Okay. We have a second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor of that motion, if you'd let me know with a raised hand. Okay. All right. Now, we're almost out of here. And we got items for future agendas. And one that I would like to make is our consideration of requiring 2 council members to submit an agenda item and in a timely fashion.
Say that again, please, sir.
Okay, so if a council, if you're going to do if you want to put an agenda item if you want to put an agenda item on this council agenda, it requires 2 council members, and you have to get it in a timely fashion. And I haven't defined that, but timely fashion. But
What would timely fashion be?
well,
That's a
I
future
guess that's
agenda
it,
item, right?
right.
Yeah, that's just,
It's-
so.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was actually
yeah.
going to say maybe we should tack it onto the workshop too, maybe.
that's a possibility.
I'm just saying we can really converse about it then, and
Yeah,
and then
but
we'll
I would
have
like
understanding.
to look at that.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Anybody
that-
else? Okay. All right. I see no need for an executive session unless someone indicates it. We are adjourned.